I call to order the regular meeting of the Lakewood City Council on July 27th, 2026 at 7:14 p.m. To connect with the council meeting online, please use one of the following links at lakewoodspeaks.org or lakewood.org/council videos. If you're tuning in tonight and would like to address the city, you'll be given the opportunity to do so at multiple points throughout this evening's events. That will also include general public comment. We have an initial period of public comment. We have another non-agenda period of public comment, and then we'll have comment relating to our 3 second reading ordinances tonight. For those of you that may prefer to leave your comments online, that is an option. You may post your comments of any length to lakewoodspeaks.org. That is our online forum for public comments. It is also where you can find documents, supporting information for the items that we are discussing tonight as well. So if you wanted to go to lakewoodspeaks.org just to click on tonight's meeting, and you'll see a lot of supporting information regardless of which topic you're here that you're interested in. With that will be left open through the evening and until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So public comment can be done there or here in person. If you're here, you sign up, you decide you'd ultimately like to just leave your comments online instead, you can do that. Or you can certainly proceed and we'll have you sign up. If you're interested in signing up for any of the topics to speak, you can do so in the back corner. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilors Black.
Here.
Cruz, aye.
Here.
Cruz, K.
Here.
Furman.
Here.
LeBure.
Here.
Lowe.
Here.
Nystrom.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Sinks.
Here.
Sharzai.
Here.
Mayor Strom.
Here.
Great. You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do have one quick note to make, a little change in our agenda. Under general business, we do have 3 meetings that we will be discussing scheduling this night, or not the meetings for tonight, but we will be discussing scheduled meetings for other nights this evening. So that will include an executive session to discuss legal issues arising out of the budget and occupation tax court ruling last year, as well as 2 meetings, I believe, that directly pertain to the hiring of a new city manager candidate. So we will get to those in general business, but for now, this is when I would ask for those of you that are able to do so, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing afterwards for a moment of silent prayer or reflection.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All members of the City Council have the responsibility to comply with the terms of Charter 7.2B and excuse themselves from voting on any matter in which they determine they have a personal, financial, or business interest. The City Council is empowered by Charter 7.2B to agree by unanimous vote, excluding the member at issue, to excuse any member of the council from voting on a matter in which they determine such member has a personal, financial, or business interest. All right, so this leads us to the moment of this evening where we'll take a little bit of a moment of personal privilege. And I have a couple of partners that will be assisting me with said moment of personal privilege. Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Sinks, we shall approach the lectern. Mayor Pro Tem, the floor is yours.
All right. Proclamation, Kathy Hodson. Whereas for 17 years, Ms. Kathy Hodson has provided exceptional leadership as Lakewood City Manager, guiding the city with integrity, vision, and an unwavering commitment to public service. And whereas throughout her tenure, Ms. Hodson transformed the priorities and aspirations of Lakewood residents and City Council into meaningful action, including helping secure more than 192 acres of parkland and open space for current and future generations. And whereas her leadership extended well beyond Lakewood's borders, bringing communities together to address regional challenges, including helping establish Jefferson County's first year-round homeless navigation center, a lasting investment in compassionate solutions to homelessness. And whereas under Ms. Hodson's leadership, the city of Lakewood earned national recognition as an All-American City in both 2011 and 2016, and in 2025 was inducted into the National Civic League's All-American City Hall of Fame, reflecting a culture of innovation, collaboration, and civic excellence. And whereas Ms. Hodson's reputation reaches far beyond City Hall, as it is nearly impossible to attend a meeting, conference, or community event anywhere in this metro area without encountering someone who has known her, admires her, and worked with her, or has a story about her unwavering generosity and leadership. And whereas she skillfully led complex negotiations, including the acquisition and disposition of Jefferson County Public Schools properties, ensuring these valuable public assets continue to serve the Lakewood community she proudly calls home. And whereas while Ms. Hodson's strategic mind and steady leadership earn the respect of colleagues across Colorado, it is her humor, quick wit, and remarkable ability to confidently invent entirely new words, often delivered with such certainty that everyone questioned whether they had somehow missed them in the dictionary, that made even the most challenging meetings memorable and reminded us not to take ourselves too seriously. And whereas Kathy Hodson leaves behind not only a stronger, more resilient, and more connected Lakewood, but also generations of public servants, community leaders, and elected officials who are better because they had the opportunity to learn from, laugh with, and serve alongside her. Now, therefore, on behalf of the City Council and the people of the City of Lakewood, I, Wendy Strom, Mayor of the City of Lakewood, Colorado, by virtue of authority vested in me, do hereby extend its deepest gratitude and appreciation to Ms. Kathy Hodson for her decades of distinguished public service, congratulate her on a remarkable career, and wish her next chapter filled with adventure, laughter, and a freedom to invent as many new words as she likes without anyone asking for a definition. May her legacy continue to inspire those who follow, and may Lakewood forever be grateful for the immeasurable impact she's made on the community she has faithfully served.
Well, that was quite the detailiest proclamation. Counselor Sinks, wait. Manager Hodson, will you join us up front? Counselors, if we can get into the middle, Counselor Sinks and I will be on either side of Ms. Hodson with the proclamation. Do you have it in hand? Or you give it to, will you bring that up? And then we're going to take a picture with our esteemed photographer. AKA the Deputy City Manager. Okay, you're in the middle.
AI wrote it.
Oh.
Yeah. Perfect.
Mayor Strom, may I just thank you for this? It was beautiful and I appreciate it, and I won't make up any new words. The only thing I would add is I was with staff last week, and I think I've attended, get this, 720 city council meetings in my career. That includes workshops and study sessions. So that just makes me tired thinking of it, but I just wanted to tell you that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you've done beyond just 192 acres of park. You've helped us in so many ways as we've tried to do the very best that we all can, whether it be staff, community, or counselors, on making sure that Lakewood is moving in the right direction. So you will be missed. All right. Thank you, everybody. And We will move forward now to our initial period of public comment. So this is the first point in tonight's meeting where the public is invited to address the City Council, and this one's on items that are not pertaining to this evening's agenda. This initial period of public comment allows for up to 10 speakers to provide comment on any matter other than an agenda item and does prioritize those with special needs. Speaking during this initial period of public comment does require signing up to speak with the city clerk in advance of the meeting with a cutoff of 5 p.m. There is no pooling of time during this initial period. We'll stop for just a second, whether we're talking about this initial period or other public comment as we move through tonight's evening. For all of these, the goal of that public comment period is to create an environment that welcomes all stakeholders to share their thoughts and concerns about the city. Whether your comments are left on Lakewood Speaks Online or here in the room, ask that you make your comments be directed to the City Council. Ask that everyone in attendance respect the decorum of council chambers and practice civility. And so that every speaker may be heard, I ask that everyone here also refrain from audible discourse or support with the speaker. Again, we want to make sure that everybody gets heard. We want to make sure that everybody gets time to get up here to say what is important to them that brought them out tonight. So for anyone who's in the audience that may be uncomfortable speaking in the front room, I did mention earlier, you are also welcome to instead leave your comment on lakewoodspeaks.org. You'll just pick tonight's meeting and then you'll pick the topic item that you want to leave that comment under. That will be left open until 10 a.m. tomorrow. If you're speaking to the council and have any handouts, we would ask you to leave them up here with our city clerk, and they will be distributed to the city clerk or to the city council after this evening's meeting. The purpose of public comment is for us to hear from you. This is a listening session. So this is not back and forth. If you have a desire to speak with someone that's up here or on staff independently, I would encourage you to reach out by email, phone, or otherwise, and we'll make sure to get your time with the appropriate person. But for this evening, this is a listen session only. And once you get up here, for anyone that is speaking tonight that has not spoken before, you'll join us up here at the front lectern where I was just standing actually while we were reading the proclamation. There's a microphone up here. If we need a shorter microphone, there's one on the left, and the timer is up here as well. You'll start by giving us your name and your address or your name and the ward. You'll get 3 minutes unless you're a pooled time, and then that is 4 speakers that all come together for a 10-minute presentation. So that is it, and with that, we'll go ahead and start with our first speaker this evening. We have David Corden, then Jan Burnett, and then Gail Ryan. Welcome.
Good evening. It's actually quarter, if I may. Good to see you folks. I am Dave Corder. I live in the Lakewood Navigation Center. I came down here today, but first of all, we would love to express our deepest gratitude for the people of the Lakewood Navigation Center, the VOA. They've been doing great. The staff is absolutely phenomenal. There's a few I'd like to point out in particular. Gina's just doing a fantastic job. She truly cares about her job. Sorry, trying to breathe. My case manager, Anthony, also doing a killer job. The staff out there truly care about what they're doing. They're fantastic people. It's an amazing program, but it's in its infancy. And there are a few things that I think would need attention. For example, we're fed dinner at 4:30 in the afternoon, and we're fed small child-sized TV dinners. I eat that and I'm hungry in a half hour. And then we're told that we can have food stamps, but we can't have food in the building, okay? The second thing is, and most importantly, what I'd like to point out, my friend here, John, a military veteran, has been in the building with me for at least a month. There's another friend back there with me also from the military veterans. They've been in the building for a month or more. These are veterans. They should have been housed as soon as possible. And these people at the Navigation Center, whether it be lack of training, maybe laziness, I hate to say, just don't seem to be pushing. I'd like to see maybe a little more aggressive effort, if you will. Come chase us down, make us do what you want us to do. Give us a reason to progress. And it's hard to do so, especially if you have roommates next to you that are unfortunately addicted to drugs, and we know that a large part of the homeless population are addicted to drugs. But that's not everybody. That's not me. That's not him. And I would call on the people of the city and the state of Colorado not to judge, because there are people like myself that are not addicted to drugs, and we are trying to move forward. We just need the resources. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's John Barnett. I live at the same facility. I want to give a lot of credit to our donors. These are awesome people. Without them, they wouldn't have the care we have. And there's really nothing that we want for. However, there are some setbacks, which we all expect to have, starting new things out. And the VA should know too, that they're doing good. I just think maybe they're overwhelmed a little bit. I don't know. I'm not going to judge, but other than that, the program's going good. I like to try to start an initiative, but I need some help. I was thinking about getting a group of guys from the same program and saying, hey, our neighbors don't like us. How about if we get out 3 times a week and clean trash up out of our neighborhood, off our block? Maybe we'll get a different response from where we are, but we're all being judged for the ones that should be and we shouldn't be. So, and I want to thank the Lakewood Council as well for allowing us to have our establishment. It really it helps. So, thank you. That's all I got.
All right, thank you. Gail Ryan, then Nico Rune, and then Natalie Menton.
Gail Ryan, 1181 Garrison. Like a dog with a bone, here I am again, still asking my question that I asked once before the final vote on the revised code and 3 times since. How many multifamily structures of various sizes already exist in wards 1, 2, and 3? I did ask the city staff, as the mayor suggested last time, and got referred several different places before finally receiving a reply from Paul Rice, who stated there was no such data created for any recent planning project associated with the comprehensive plan or the proposed zoning code. Roger Lowe did send me a lengthy email detailing what the 2012 code allowed and said there might be a way to figure out what was built under that code, but that he doubted there was ever any count of duplexes, fourplexes, and small apartment buildings built 30 or 40 years ago. Having lived at 13th and Garrison since 1976, I can assure you there has been a lot of gradual densification occurring over all those years. And when the West Line opened in 2013, the extreme densification around the stations began, and in the last 5 to 10 years has created enormous apartment buildings along the transit corridors, which we all know, and yet through the petitions and election, we were continually referred to by opposition as NIMBYs, without acknowledging how much densification and diversity of housing and people has already been absorbed into and included in our communities in wards 1, 2, and 3. I ask the council to commit the staff resources it will take to collect the data to inform future codes. I suspect county appraisers, the post office, and chambers of commerce may have pieces of such data, but I would think that before making plans about the city, it would be important to know what you already have in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Nico Rue?
Mayor, I just heard from Nico Rue. He's actually a resident of Lakewood, Ohio.
Okay.
And, yeah,
All right, thank
Reached out to
you.
the wrong city.
Natalie
We can move on.
Menton, you're up.
Good evening, City Council. Natalie Menton, Lakewood voter, resident, taxpayer. I am speaking to the proposed revision to our Lakewood City Charter 12.12 titled Limitations on Property Taxes. The first question I have, as this has been approached, and I've watched the Charter Committee meetings, what legal, let's call them legal experts, have reviewed this and have expertise in property taxes? So I'll put in a public information request for that information to give you a heads up on that. And hopefully nothing will be labeled work product, and I'll be able to see all those discussions. Meanwhile, the existing charter limits property tax revenue, and I underscore limits revenue. It says a city may not levy a property tax that produces more than the previous year's property tax revenue plus 7%. I agree, our charter is outdated, as it was written in the early 80s, mid even, because Tabor was passed in 1992 and limits local property tax revenue, underscore revenue, to inflation and local growth. And that's found in Tabor 7C. The staff memo associated with this proposed charter amendment, however, describes the existing charter differently. It states that section 12.12a assumes the city council may increase the mill levy by 7% annually. And I tend to feel the word assumes was not used lightly when it was inserted in that memo. Assumes is in there. I tend to, furthermore, I don't believe that's an accurate description of what the charter actually says. So please read the plain language. Feed it into your AI. Ask it, is it a limit on mill levy, or is it a limit on revenue? That's two different things. Property tax revenue and mill levy are not the same thing. The mill levy is simply a tax rate used to produce the permitted amount of revenue. So you've noted revenue multiple times here. Note that, though, Tabor Taxpayers' Bill of Rights says you cannot raise the mill levy above the prior year without prior voter approval. That's in Tabor 4A. And that distinction matters because the existing charter, which I hope you will read closely and read the plain language, the existing charter limits the amount of property tax revenue collected, not the mill levy itself. Tabor does, but the proposed charter removes that numerical limitation entirely. Instead, it simply states the city shall comply with the Colorado Constitution. If the purpose is to remove obsolete language, I'd ask council to clearly explain in this proposed amendment, what protections are you giving taxpayers? Explicitly, what protections are you giving on property tax limits? So I'll revisit this here in a couple weeks, I guess. Meanwhile, I'll send in a public information request for correspondence with council and county city attorney.
Your time is
Thanks.
expired. Thank you. All right, that brings us to this evening's consent agenda. Do we have any items that council wishes to remove from this evening's consent agenda? All right, seeing none. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda into the record?
The consent agenda is comprised of the following items. Item 4, resolutions, R 2026-52, reappointing a member to the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority Board of Commissioners in compliance with Section 3125-104 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. R 2026-53, appointing an interim city manager and establishing compensation for such services. R 2026-54, appointing a member to the Design Review Commission. R 2026-55, appointing a member to the Lakewood Advisory Commission. First reading ordinances O 2026-24, amending Chapter 2.54 of the Lakewood Municipal Code pertaining to campaign and political finance in municipal elections. O 2026-25, calling for a coordinated special municipal election to be held on November 3rd, 2026, to submit a vote to the registered electors of the City of Lakewood, Colorado, a ballot question for the purpose of authorizing a voter-approved amendment to Section 2.6 of the city's Home Rule Charter to establish that term of office for any newly elected mayor or members of City Council begins at the first meeting following certification of the election results and adopting the ballot title therefore. O 2026-26, calling for a coordinated special municipal election to be held on November 3rd, 2026, to submit to a vote of registered electors of the City of Lakewood, Colorado, a ballot question for the purpose of receiving voter approval to repeal and replace Section 2.8 of the city's Home Rule Charter to authorize additional procedures for filling vacant city council member seats and adopting the ballot title therefore. O 2026-27, calling for a coordinated special municipal election to be held on November 3rd, 2026, to submit to a vote of the registered electors of the City of Lakewood, Colorado, a ballot question for the purpose of receiving voter approval to repeal and replace Section 1212 of the city's Home Rule Charter to require any increase in property taxes be approved by a vote of the electorate and adopting the ballot title therefore. O 2026-28, calling for a coordinated municipal special election to be held on November 3rd, 2026, to submit to a vote of the registered electors of the City of Lakewood, Colorado, a ballot question for the purpose of authorizing voter-approved amendments to the city's Home Rule Charter to replace the language establishing timeframes for holding regular or special elections as established within Section 13.1 subsection D regarding initiative procedures and 13.2 subsection E regarding referendum procedures, and adopting the ballot title therefore. Item 6, approving minutes of the city council meetings, regular meeting minutes from July 13, 2026, special meeting minutes from July 13, 2026.
All right, thank you. I have no one signed up to speak on this evening's consent agenda. Was there anyone that wanted to speak on the consent agenda? Ms. Menton?
Hello again, Natalie Menton. Speaking generally to initiative and referendum, I would have fit this into my earlier comments, but I ran out of time. There have been multiple discussions about different changes with our right to citizen initiative and citizen referendum. As a very strong and longtime supporter of our right to initiative, which really recognizes that we, the taxpayers and voters, are the top of the organizational chart, not the folks who assume a seat temporarily, but we, the citizens. Any attack or limit on our right to initiative and referendum, any attack, any limits that make it more difficult, such as administrative barriers while you're waiting for ballot, a form of a petition to be approved. Meanwhile, your clock is getting eaten up on this very limited amount of time that you have to go out and circulate and stand in front
Ms.
of grocery
Menton,
stores.
are you perhaps wanting to make a comment on 2.52 that's coming up later?
It's an overarching theme. The basic comment here is any city ordinance or charter change that would limit or reduce our rights to citizen initiative and referendum are an attack on citizens. That's just plain and simple. It's already hard enough. And what appears to be is this council wants to make it more difficult in some of these measures. So, for instance, the one later, honestly, I'm going to go pick up a truckload of Breeze right now for free, and I have to leave. So I get to go shovel decomposed granite, and I wanted to make sure I shared with you how strongly I support our right to initiative and referendum, and any attack on it is inexcusable. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we will go ahead and close public comment on this evening's consent agenda. May I please have a motion?
Mayor Strom, I move for the approval of City Council minutes, order all ordinances introduced on first reading to be published in the Denver Post with public hearing set for the date included in the ordinance, and for adoption of resolutions, all of which were included in the consent agenda items introduced into the record by the city clerk.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor in the second. Any council discussion? All right, seeing none, please go ahead and cast your vote. And that passes 11 yeses and 0 noes. Will the clerk please read item 8A into the record?
Second reading and public hearing on item 8A, ordinance O 2026-21, amending chapter 2.52 of the Lakewood Municipal Code pertaining to initiative and referendum procedures.
Okay, thank you. All right, up first, I have Karen Gourday. And I need to confirm that we do have 4 in total. Mary Jansen? Okay, thank you. Karen Miller, yep, there we go, and Ludmilla. Okay, all right, we're ready. So please go ahead and come forward and we'll start your clock for 10 minutes.
Do you have the slide, Mr. Rob? Because I'll need that in a minute. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Karen Gourday, and I live in Ward 5. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of the Lakewood Citizens Alliance. Although the Lakewood Citizens Alliance mission is focused on land use and community planning, we were formed because the citizens exercised their right of referendum. Protecting the citizens process is fundamental to our organization's founding and directly relates to why we are here tonight and can't support the changes to section 2.52 as they are currently written. We recognize that this council doesn't like significant issues leading to amendments being raised at second reading, and quite frankly, neither do we. However, citizens don't get to participate in drafting these ordinances. We review the public record, ask questions, and sometimes our understanding evolves as we continue doing the work. Because of this, we reached out over the weekend with our concerns and suggested amendments. Before I turn to what we believe is the most significant issue, I also want to briefly address the use of active and inactive voter registrations and calculating signature requirements. And I want to be clear that I am not suggesting voter fraud or election fraud with my next statement. Jefferson County does not immediately remove inactive registrations from the voter rolls after an election. Election judges who have worked Jeffco elections for years have explained that the post-election cleanup process takes time and resources. Our committee staffed election watchers during the April 7th special election. Their reports documented 13 trays of undeliverable ballots, with each tray containing approximately 450 to 600 ballots. That represents approximately 5,850 to 7,800 of undeliverable ballots. Including those inactive voters in the registered elector count artificially increases the number of signatures citizens must collect for an initiative or referendum. I would also suggest that maybe have the staff look into how other cities across the Front Range are calculating the number of electors. What you will find is a wide variety. That brings me to what I believe is the most significant substantive change that was added after the June 1st study session. Mr. Rob, next slide. It's important to understand that there are 4 different types of petitions that citizens can run, each with different requirements. I'm putting this on the screen because that distinction matters. And thank you to Mr. Rob for confirming this morning the state statutes that apply to the 4th type of petition. During the June 1st study session, the city attorney's office explained that these revisions were not intended to make substantive policy changes. They also explained that revisions would provide a clean slate should council choose to consider policy changes in the future. When section 2.52.030 was discussed, the assistant city attorney explained that a summary would now be required for both initiatives and referendums, along with an update to the definition of title. I'll be candid, it took me a while to get here. After watching the June 1st study session 3 times, I came to a different conclusion late Saturday night and no longer believed this was an issue of bad faith. I believe it was an unintended consequence of the change management process. What I now believe occurred is actually quite simple. It appears the initiative appeal language was carried into the referendum section as part of implementing the new summary requirement. In doing so, sections 2.52.030, subsection A and B, became section 2.52130C and D. Section 2.52130D now creates an appeal process that appears to consume part of an already limited time frame. While the ordinance states that the filing requirements are not intended to be affected, the filing requirements are not what triggers the referendum clock. The clock begins when the adopted ordinance is published. The practical effect is that citizens could lose valuable time exercising one of their most important reserved powers. At a minimum, subsection C consumes 5 days of the signature gathering period, and subsection D consumes an additional 7 to 16 days. I emphasize at a minimum for 2 reasons. First, we know from last year that the city clerk's office took 22 days to approve the first referendum petition. And second, as Kathy Kentner pointed out in her comments on Lakewood Speaks, quote, referenda challenge ordinances that have already gone through a public hearing process. That process includes notification for when the city has prepared and published summaries. Those summaries should be complete, accurate, and understandable throughout the legislative process. Creating a separate summary for a referendum only adds confusion for petitioners and voters, end quote. And this is another way the city can play games to delay the process. If subsection D remains, no one knows how long the court proceeding could actually take. As our attorney explained, quote, first, it cuts into the time period for referendum and initiatives. Cuts into the time for referendum and interferes with the referendum. Second, the city has no ability to confer jurisdiction on the district court and certainly none to tell them to expedite. Only state statute or the Constitution can grant jurisdiction to the courts. The next piece is not theoretical. For anyone who believes running a referendum is easy, I would encourage you to participate in a large-scale referendum effort, not one requiring only the signatures necessary to qualify as a candidate, but one requiring thousands of signatures from across the community. In fact, the next time we undertake a petition effort, we'll be happy to give any member of council a seat at our table so that you can see what it takes firsthand. Our request tonight is that council consider the following amendments, and these are different than the ones that we emailed to City Council yesterday, based on exchanges with a city councilor today who was working with us and a city attorney's office throughout today. Regarding section 2.52130, subsections C and D, our preference would be to have these removed completely, since there are differing legal opinions, and that is a policy change, and that was not the intent for this update. The reality is this: many in the community no longer trust this mayor and council. They see the passage of time, they know the 6-month cooling off period is already half over, and they worry that when zoning returns, the practical ability to exercise the referendum power reserved to the people will be diminished. Whether or not that's anyone's intent, that perception is real, and perceptions like that erode public trust. And finally, in listening to the recording that was sent to me by a member of the community from the most recent Ward 5 meeting, Councilor LeBure mentioned that you've been hearing a lot from Councilor Lowe about change management. And on this point, Councilor Lowe is 100% right. And that won't happen for another year. Every ordinance that council considers is part of a larger change management process. Every decision has downstream impacts, and those impacts on all stakeholders must be considered. From the outside looking in, it appears that staff works hard to implement council's direction. However, the impacts on the city's largest stakeholder group, the residents of Lakewood, are often overlooked. We have seen this at least 3 times in the last year. One with the zoning changes regarding rebuilding after disasters, then with the WUI codes that did not take into account the cost to homeowners, and now with section 2.52 regarding initiative and referendum rights. Please get this fixed so that the residents of Lakewood do not have to come out every 2 weeks to explain why they're unhappy. It would help to restore trust, and your words and actions would align, because we're very close to the point that trust cannot be restored. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Serica. I can't read the last name.
Hello?
Yes.
It's a bit of a weird one.
Then Carol Sandstead, and then Natalie Minton, but I think she left.
Thank you, Council. My name is Derek Kello. I'm a resident of Ward 5, and I apologize for the bit of off the cuff here, as I only was informed about this today and wanted to come in to speak about it, but I do believe this is a very pro-democratic measure. I do believe that more clarity is needed, and as someone who does actively participate within petition gathering, right now I'm out with 195, which is a statewide petition regarding income taxes. I understand how hard petition gathering is. But I think the efforts to make it more clear, more readable, and go through and clean up the grammar is admirable, and I think it's one that needs to be pursued. And I think you guys have done a wonderful job on that so far. I do understand that there's complaints about the legalese and needing to continue to draft on it, but I do think that there is a matter of it's always going to have to be written that way. I am not a lawyer myself. I know some of the members on the city council here are, and I think there's a few behind me as well. But that's why I usually don't do this off the cuff. But, yeah, I guess that's all I really have to say. I just say I support it, I appreciate your guys' effort, and I really encourage you guys to vote yes for this. Thank you all.
Thank you. Carol Sandstead.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm in Ward 1. My name is Carol Sandstead. And of course, I'm here to discuss 8A. I'm here to speak not just for myself, but for quite a few people that I've discussed this with that are also Lakewood citizens. And we respectfully request that this not be passed in its present state. The proposed changes would definitely limit and make it nearly improbable to have a successful citizens initiative or referendum the way it sits. This process is part of the core of democracy, and it allows the citizens to be heard in a very peaceable way. We respectfully request to not make the proposed types of changes. But if changes are to be made to this process, would you please let them be not restrictive, but ones that strengthen and support our inalienable right to be heard? I really appreciate your hearing me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And we do have a staff presentation this evening, so I will hand the floor over to one of our city attorneys, Gus Skank.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Gus Skank. I'm one of the attorneys here for the city. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to discuss the proposed revisions to Chapter 2.52. And I want to highlight that these revisions stem from a process that began in 2025 during a review of referendum petitions submitted by community members. Through these interactions, along with earlier work on an initiative petition in 2024, the petition review team in the city clerk's and the city attorney's office recognized significant community confusion surrounding the petition process. This confusion was reflected in multiple rejections of both initiative petitions and the first referendum petition forms, which I believe was just referenced with a 20-something day turnaround. That stemmed from rejections of forms that were not satisfactory. Each one was rejected several times based on different sources of authority. This includes Chapter 2.52, the Charter, and the Colorado Revised Statutes. These situations were challenging for both staff and petitioners and often involved difficult conversations. In one instance, a respected attorney for the referendum petitioners who understandably was understandably confused because a requirement we cited was not found in the state law, but was found in the municipal code. And in other situations, staff has needed to remind others brought in by the city that there are specific requirements in city law that aren't found in the state code. It's confusing. All of this highlights a core issue. Chapter 2.52, in its current form, does not give petitioners, protesters, the public, or city staff a complete set of rules. The 100-plus comments submitted on Lakewood Speaks today and last week further demonstrates that there's no clear shared understanding of all the laws that govern petition filings in Lakewood. With that in mind, staff revised Chapter 2.52 in its current form to consolidate all relevant legal requirements into one place so that anyone reviewing the chapter can clearly see every requirement needed for a successful petition. Now, let's talk about why we are bringing these forward tonight. I've seen several comments suggesting that this is in response or in even retaliation to the 4 successful referendum petitions filed in 2025. That is not the case. The timing has nothing to do with the successful referendums in 2025 or the successful initiative petition in 2024. We are bringing these amendments now at the end of July in a non-regular election year because this is one of the few times we can revise an election-related code when there is no election pending. This ensures that the revisions cannot be viewed as targeting any candidate or any ballot issue. We also waited until now so that council and the community could review the proposed changes, which are really proposed clarifications, without having to consider their impact on a pending petition or an upcoming ballot measure. Despite comments to the contrary, these revisions are not aimed at any particular group. They are intended to help everyone who may pursue an initiative or referendum petition in the future, and they are also intended to help city staff by providing a clear, consistent set of rules. And again, the timing was chosen because at only a few points in each year can these updates be considered without the lens of a recently completed or upcoming election. While staff is proposing substantial updates to 2.52, the intent is to clean up the code, reduce confusion, and, where the charter allows, align our procedures with state law. No changes were made to signature thresholds, filing deadlines, effective dates, or any other substantive rights afforded to Lakewood residents for either initiative or referendum petitions. And I'm now going to take some time to address the specific concerns raised on Lakewood Speaks. And after this presentation, I'm of course happy to continue the discussion and answer any additional questions that the council may have. And based on some comments on Lakewood Speaks, some residents have suggested eliminating Chapter 2.52 entirely and relying solely on state law. Expressing a concern that the chapter forces petitioners to move back and forth between the municipal code and state statutes. A central goal of these revisions is to align our procedures with state statutes wherever possible. For example, the circulator affidavit requirements in sections 252080D and 252140D were updated to match the requirements in CRS 3111-106, which includes elements currently not found in our code, including that the circulator has read and understands the laws governing the circulation of petition. These changes are intended to reduce the need to consult both the municipal code and the state statutes. However, Chapter 2.52 cannot simply be eliminated because certain statutory provisions conflict with the city charter. As a result, the municipal code must continue to explain procedures that the charter uniquely requires, such as the timing for presenting sufficient petitions to City Council and election-related deadlines. Even so, these proposed revisions will bring the city closer to state standards where possible, reducing confusion and minimizing the need to toggle between the code, the charter, and statute. There was also a concern raised on Lakewood Speaks that the city remove the deadline for determining final sufficiency, effectively allowing the petition to be held indefinitely without formal action. I understand the concern, but that is not the case. Section 252090 already establishes the sufficiency review timeline for initiative petitions with an initial determination within 20 days and then a final sufficiency determination after the protest period. Under 252090C4, The period can be extended when a protest is filed after the clerk has deemed a petition sufficient. And a similar procedure applies to referendum petitions under sections 252150 and 252150C4 specifically. The proposed revisions reorganize these sections for clarity, and importantly, they add new safeguards. Subsections 252090D and 252150D now require that a petition hearing be concluded within 60 days of the petition's filing. This is consistent with CRS 3111-110 and ensures that petitions have a definite deadline for the administration of the protest process, which is something that the current code does not guarantee. Both subsections 252090D and 252150D end with the following statement. If an appeal of a decision of the city clerk is filed with the district court, the timeline for carrying out an election shall conform to the city's election laws to the extent possible, subject to any orders or rulings of such court. In other words, absent judicial intervention, the city will continue to present petitions to the city council and conduct elections within the timelines required by the charter. This is a strong affirmation of municipal authority, not an invitation to delay elections, and again underscores the city's respect for and commitment to the powers of initiative and referendum. There was also concern raised that the changes to 252090A and C add no value and instead create confusion around the sufficiency determination process. That concern is correct in one respect. These subsections are revised, do not introduce new requirements. They were revised to separate distinct topics that were previously appearing together. Section 252090A now focuses solely on signature review, while 252090C addresses only the initial sufficiency determination. This restructuring is intended to make the code clearer by keeping different subjects from being mixed together. There was also concern expressed over section 252110B, indicating this provision is not necessary because City Council has already reviewed and approved the initiative and petition title. This comment supports the very reason staff added 252110B. There is confusion about the difference between the petition title and the ballot title. The city clerk sets the petition title, whereas the city council sets the ballot title, which is precisely why staff added a definition of ballot title in 252020 and then created 252110B to ensure that everybody understands the different title types at play. There was also a concern about the need for the proposed addition to section 252140C, which now clarified that the city clerk must approve the form of a petition, of a referendum petition and fix a summary before circulation, and must approve or reject the form within 5 business days of receiving it. We just heard about this a moment ago. These updates reflect the practices used for all 4 referendum petitions circulated in 2025 and align with the standards of CRS 3111-106 subpart 1. The clerk's approval authority was a point of conflict during the 2025 referendum process. So this revision is intended to reduce future disputes while bringing the code into alignment with state law. Finally, the city clerk's approval of a petition form serves as a safeguard, not an obstacle for petitioners. It ensures their efforts are not jeopardized by technical violations. Under CRS 3111-1065, petitions that fail to meet statutory requirements are invalidated. As discussed at the beginning of my statement, the clerk has previously identified numerous such issues for petitions circulated in 24-25. Remember, the 20-day approval period for the one petition. That's a back and forth time between the clerk and the petitioners. And this prevented disqualification and protected the petitioner's work. Finally, while some comments have implied that a summary is not necessary on a referendum petition, it has been included as a matter of course in the past in the city, and this is in compliance with CRS 3111-106-3B, which provides the required location of the summary and the fact that it is to be prepared by the clerk. There have also been concerns about section 252140D, which allows only the petition representatives to challenge the summary fixed by the city clerk for a referendum petition. This section also clarifies that the appeal process does not extend the filing deadline because Charter Section 13.2B ties that deadlines to the ordinance's effective date. That is under Charter Section 7.4. Extending the deadline by ordinance could conflict with the charter and subject petitions to challenge and potentially invalidation. However, this provision gives the two petition representatives a clear, codified avenue to challenge the clerk's summary while staying within the charter's fixed guidelines or timelines. It is important to emphasize that only these two representatives are authorized to file an appeal. No other individual can use Section 252140D to obstruct or delay a referendum petition. There have been several comments suggesting that the revised Chapter 252 is too complicated to follow. While the revisions reorganize some sections and update others, staff did not undertake a full rewrite because we were committed to preserving existing policy. As a result, the structure of the chapter remains largely the same. This means that concerns about complexity in the revised code are, in effect, concerns about complexity in the existing code. I've also seen several comments expressing concern about the inclusion of inactive voters in Section 252070 and 252130B. To clarify, inactive voters are still registered electors, fully eligible to serve as petition representatives or to sign initiative or referendum petitions. This is confirmed by CRS 12604 subpart 3, which states that an elector marked inactive remains eligible to vote if they meet all other requirements. An elector becomes inactive when their registration record indicates they no longer reside at an address on file. The practical effect is that mail ballots are not sent to inactive voters because they would almost certainly be returned to sender. However, for petition purposes, inactive voters are already included in the Charter's signature calculations. Charter Sections 13.1B and 13.2B base signature thresholds on the total number of registered electors on the date of the last regular municipal election, and this includes inactive voters. Adding this clarification to the code simply ensures transparency so everyone involved in the initiative and referendum processes understands the expectations. Another comment suggests that the proposed revisions make substantive changes by altering the number of required signatures, whose signatures count, or the technical requirements that might lead to signature rejection. Again, while I understand the concern, none of these elements have changed. The charter established signature thresholds remain exactly the same. 5% of all registered electors for an initiative petition and 3% for a referendum petition. Everyone registered to vote in the city of Lakewood who correctly signs a petition will have their signature counted. The signer requirement updates to 252.080C and 252.140C simply modernize the language to make it more inclusive. No new signature requirements were added. Likewise, sections 252.090A and 252.150A retain the same technical requirements as before. Those are the requirements of what signatures will count, what will disqualify a signature. And the only change is the capitalization of the word city. Finally, 252060 already requires initiative petitions to be filed with the city clerk within 180 days after the title is fixed. And subsection 252130B already requires referendum petitions to be submitted before an ordinance's effective date. In short, the revisions do not change thresholds, eligibility, or technical standards in any substantive way. While some comments suggest these updates are retaliatory following the referendum elections, a closer look shows otherwise. These changes arise from confusion about how state and local laws interact and are intended to strengthen rather than limit the powers of initiative and referendum. I appreciate everyone who shared their concerns on Lakewood Speaks, and I thank the Mayor and City Council for the opportunity to take the time tonight to respond to them. The volume and substance of the comments reinforce the very reason we undertook these revisions. Many residents do not realize how complex the initiative and referendum processes are, nor do they appreciate how many different laws govern petition filings. I know Council plans to revisit broader policy questions in Chapter 252 at a later date, but that is not the focus tonight. Instead, we are continuing our review of staff's proposed revisions to 252, and I want to reiterate that both I and all staff involved approach these updates with a clear understanding of and a deep respect for the initiative and referendum powers that are guaranteed to every Lakewood resident. With that, I will take my seat and be available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Robb, did you have prepared remarks as well for part of the presentation?
Not really, Mayor Strom. Kind of the big picture, general overview is, and you and I spoke about this a little bit earlier today, but this is a frustrating process for everyone involved. My favorite analogy is, every trail has a different trail map, whether it's a recall or a charter amendment or a referendum petition. It's challenging, and we're bouncing between requirements in our charter and in our code and in the state constitution and in state statute, depending on what trail map you have to follow. And so these changes are fairly technical. We try not to get into policy changes, but really kind of just trying to help clarify the different processes and clean up some of these sections of the code. So frustration is understandable. Ms. Gourdet kind of showing the different sections that apply to the different trail maps. That's certainly understandable. Trying to navigate these as staff is also very frustrating, and council as well. So we're just trying to clarify and simplify the process for the entire community.
Okay, thank you. All right, I do have a couple of hands up to speak. What I would like to do before, I don't know if any hands up are putting forward any amendments, but if we could just do hands up right now for questions and things, and then if anyone has amendments, we'll come to that in a little bit. So first I have Kay Cruz, then Councilor Lowe, then Councilor Sinks.
Yeah, so a few questions I have. Before this revision, did section 2.52130 require the city clerk to draft a summary for referendum petitions or provide any appeal process related to that summary?
No, 2.52130 C and D are new.
Okay, thank you. And can you confirm who has standing to file an appeal under 2.52130D?
Certainly. I want to make sure I get the language right. It would be any registered elector submitting such referendum petition. So the petition representatives.
Okay, so not just any registered elector.
No.
Okay. And if a petition representative files an appeal under D and it proceeds to district court, is there any enforceable timeline for how long that takes?
No. I can tell you that the statement, the case shall be docketed as cause there pending and disposed of as expeditiously as circumstances permit. That is a statement directed at the city. We would not purport to control what the county court does. And instead, we would not be unduly delaying anything and would have all of our documents prepared and would be working to get this done as quickly as humanly possible.
Thank you. And the last question I have, given there's no mechanism to pause a referendum's 30 or even 45-day clock and no enforceable timeline once a dispute reaches court, what does a petition representative actually gain by using this appeal right beyond the option to spend time they can't get back?
They would have the option to challenge a summary they didn't approve of. This is an option they didn't have before. They don't have to appeal it all the way up. They could do the administrative appeal, let the city clerk know that they are not happy with the summary as set. They would be able to have a hearing with the city clerk. And at that hearing, the clerk is going to listen and acknowledge whatever they have to say. I would believe that the petitioners that Mr. Robb has worked along with over the last couple of years would acknowledge that he is flexible and listens to their concerns. If they went all the way up to the district court, they would have available to them any legal argument as to why they believe the clock, let's call it the shot clock, should be told. But the city can't build that into the code and effectively potentially set somebody up for failure if it was determined legally that you can't toll that based on the city's charter.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Lowe.
Thank you, Mayor. My questions actually build on that, so thank you, Councilor Cruz. And Mr. Shank, I'm not butchering your last name, I hope, Mr. Shank. Good. Hopefully I'm not. Thank you. That was a really comprehensive, helpful walkthrough. Look, I get it. I'm very sympathetic to this. I mean, this stuff is very, very complicated. I mean, I wish that we could write all ordinances and statutes in a way that was just as clear as day, and I think this is an attempt to do that. But there's no denying when you get into the weeds of like an ordinance, the language is complicated. So I understand why people reviewing this might be confused, and I take it at face value that folks, when they raise these questions and these concerns, are doing so in good faith. I do want to just for emphasis, I want to dig into 130 C and D, which seems to be where a lot of the confusion that I've heard so far stems. So just to be, you may have said 140. I think to be clear, it's 252 130 C and D is sort of clarifies the clerk's role in the appeal summary and setting the ballot title, right?
If I said 140, it was mistaken, and I meant 130.
Yeah, thank you. No, that makes sense. Okay, so just because that seems to be where we got like this avalanche of comments in Language Speaks, I am going to just read C and D out loud, just so that there's no one thinks that we're sort of hiding the ball or there's something in there that's not there. So C, form of referendum petition. No referendum petition section shall be printed or circulated unless the first printer's proof of the petition section has been approved by the city clerk. The city clerk shall approve or reject the form and the first printer's proof of the petition not later than 5 business days following the date on which the city clerk receives such material. In the same 5 business day period, the city clerk, with the assistance of other city officials as the city clerk deems necessary, shall designate and fix a fair summary of the ordinance that is the subject of the referendum petition, which shall correctly and fairly express the true intent and meaning of the ordinance. Okay, so you already covered, just to make sure I heard you correctly, the bottom line is state law already gives the city clerk the authority to at least set they have to prove the actual language, the title. So that you can't start circulating this under state law without the city clerk signing off, whether we pass this amendment or not, right?
If you'd like, I could read 3111, 1061.
Sure, please.
And you can read along, for most of the language is going to mirror. Each petition section shall be printed in a form consistent with the requirements of this article. No petition section shall be printed or circulated unless the form and the first printer's proof of the petition section have first been approved by the clerk. The clerk shall approve or reject the form of the first printer's proof of the petition no later than 5 business days following the date on which the clerk received such materials. The clerk shall assure that the petition section contains only those elements required by this article and contains no extraneous material. The clerk may reject a petition or section of a petition on the grounds that the petition or a section of the petition does not propose municipal legislation. And then the setting of the summary is, I believe, in subsection... That's subsection, is that 1B, 3B, pardon me. A summary of the proposed initiative or ordinance that is the subject of a referendum petition shall be printed following the warning on each page of the petition section. The summary shall be true and impartial and shall not be an argument or likely to create prejudice, either for or against the measure. The summary shall be prepared by the clerk.
Okay, so you just helpfully read out the verbatim what's in state law, and what you're doing, as you explained, is you're pulling what's already governs this process in state law, and you're making it explicit in the code by basically copying and pasting it in our ordinances so that people see it right there in the ordinances, right?
That's correct.
And more to the point, I mean, this is the way it works, right? We just had a big referendum. I mean, a bunch of people in the room were involved. I mean, in practice, and this obviously led to frustration on all sides, as we've heard, like, it's already the case because of this provision in state law that the ballot title and the summary can't be circulated until the clerk says, yes, this is accurate, this is right, you're good to go, right?
That's correct.
And in fact, that took a little bit longer than some of the referendum petitioners wanted to because of some back and forth, right? And
this is correct.
Okay, so what this is doing is taking the state law and it's making it explicit, right? I mean, we're not adding a new requirement. This is already the way things work. And the idea in C here is to just say that as plainly as possible so there's no question that that's the rule, right?
That's accurate, and to specifically build in the 5-day response timeline, which I'll say that the city clerk strives to beat that deadline every time.
I'm sure he does. But the point is, we're just trying to belt and suspenders. We're trying to say 5 days. It's got to be as fast as humanly possible per state law, right?
Correct.
Okay, and bear with me. Let's just do one more of these. Let's go to D. Okay, so that's already a requirement that exists, right? That's already in state law. So folks, if anyone has been saying, and I understand, if you're reading this and you don't have that context, you're like, there's this new requirement. Why are they doing this? But that's already the requirement. It's already in state law, and it's already the way we do things. And sometimes it's actually de facto slower, even though it shouldn't be. So by putting the shot clock in of this thing has to be done in 5 business days, the idea is, got to make this streamlined. It's in state law. It's now in our code. We're trying to make this as streamlined as possible, right? So now what happens if you don't like what the city clerk rules, right? What happens if the city clerk says, well, actually, you have no recourse, this is the ballot title, and you're not happy? Is there an appeal process right now?
No.
Okay, so there's no appeal process.
No.
Okay, so under current law, if you're trying to, let's say we pass some ordinance. Let's say we all lose our minds, we pass some ordinance that is just absolutely, terrible, and everyone wants to go file a referendum. And Mr. Rob is I don't know, God forbid, is hit by a truck or something terrible, or takes another job, God forbid. Sorry, Mr. Rob. And we have another clerk who's much, much worse than Mr. Rob, and that other clerk is very mean. And he comes up with a summary that's really bad, and says, no, that's just the way it is. Under our rules right now, is there any recourse to the folks that are filing that are trying to do this?
Not for referendum petitions.
Okay, so they just have to live with it, right? So they're trying to repeal this terrible ordinance, and now they have no appeal recourse, right?
They would not be able to appeal the summary formally, no.
Okay, so what D does is it says appeal of summary. If any registered elector submitting such referendum petition is not satisfied with the summary fixed by the clerk and claims it to be unfair, or that does not fairly express the true meaning and intent of the ordinance that is the subject of the referendum petition, such person may file a motion for hearing with the city clerk within 7 days after the return of the petition to the person submitting it, which hearing shall be pursuant to rules adopted by the city clerk and held within 2 business days thereafter, and a decision rendered within 2 business days after the conclusion of the end of that hearing. Right? And then it goes on and says if they still don't like the outcome of that, then they can file in district court, right? But just to be clear, they don't have that recourse right now under our law at all, right?
Not for referendums, no.
Okay, and as you pointed out, the only people that can file this appeal are the 2 people that brought forward the referendum in the first place. If someone doesn't want the referendum to move forward, they can't, as a delay tactic, file an appeal. It's got to be the 2 people that brought forward the referendum, right?
Correct.
Okay, so this is entirely an elective process. It's an attempt to create a safeguard for people that are trying to bring a referendum, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to put that in context. Now, folks, look, if you really don't want that appeal process added, I guess maybe we can talk about striking it. But it seems to me like it's a thoughtful effort to add an option that doesn't currently exist so that you have a recourse. Now, I get it. 45-day clock. I get it. It's in the charter. We can't do anything about changing the charter in an ordinance. You can't. I assume everyone in this room agrees that we shouldn't be able to change the charter when we pass an ordinance. I'm quite sure that folks in the room will agree with that. And indeed, we can't under the law. It's our city constitution. So the 45-day clock starts. Now, I get it. Anything that sort of eats up that time eats into the referendum process. But the point is you don't have to, right? You can go circulate it. Right now, you have no recourse if you don't like the title. This gives you the option, if you want to, if you're trying to referendum an ordinance, to appeal the language. And they've added this, within 2 business days, that's fast. That basically says this entire thing has to be done within 4 days. The entire appeal has to be rendered, the whole thing has to be wrapped up in 4 days. Folks, when you're talking about government at any level, that is like warp speed. Now, I then understand that then there's this question of if the appeal doesn't work out the way you want it, and then you take it to court, then it could be tied up in court longer. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, we can't tell the court how fast to move. So, and again, you don't have to do it. If you can still, if the appeal process doesn't go the way you want, you can just circulate the language with the referendum with the language you didn't like. So, I don't have a strong view on this. If folks really think that we should strike this, we can strike it. But it just, respectfully, it does feel a little bit to me like this is a bit of a tempest in a teapot. I understand all the reasons that people are primed and very wary about any change to this ordinance, but this really was not an effort to make referendums harder to do. It was actually an effort to clarify the process and make it easier to do. So we can take those two provisions out, but I just genuinely don't understand the argument of this was an effort to make this process harder, when for all the reasons we've laid out, these requirements already exist in state law, and if anything, it's an effort to make it easier. Now, folks, still having said that, don't trust us, I guess we can just take it out. But we just laid out as clearly as we possibly could that this is just an effort to give the referendum people, next time they do a referendum, an option to appeal a decision by the clerk if they don't like it. So that's all I have to say about that.
Counselor Sinks.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Robb, for your analogy of trail maps and how we have all these trails that we're going on. But I'm going to ask you to speak just to this question or two. In your opinion, seeing the red line version and seeing these new things that are cleanups and clarifications, how will that enable you? What will that do for your job, or if these red lines were in place last year when the referendum, when you were working with the petitioners, how would it have affected? So if you just talk about maybe past and any future experience.
Sure. Thank you, Councilor Sinks. As Mr. Schenk kind of referred to in his opening remarks about 2.52 kind of balances, half of it being for initiatives and half of it being for referendums. And there was a lot of, sections that maybe one part had and the other part didn't. We're trying to clean up, kind of add more balance to both of those sections, clarify timelines, even as Councilor Lowe pointed out, things that maybe in state statute are now specifically or explicitly, I should say, spelled out in some of these red lines. So I think it does add clarity. I think it adds balance to both the initiative and referendum processes. And then hopefully helps anyone filing a petition, and anytime staff has to dig into these sections of code, helps us have a better roadmap as well.
Great. And so what I'm hearing you say is that these new additions are going to help you work with petitioners more clearly and give them better guidelines, whereas there might have been gaps in the guidelines before, since we had to look at the city, look at the state, et cetera. Is that correct?
Yeah, well said. I do think it closes gaps and helps staff and petitioners.
Great. Thank you.
Counselor Icruz, then Counselor LeBure.
Thank you, and appreciate the conversation, Mr. Skank, and the questions from fellow counselors. I think that's been very illuminating for me. And just wanted to dig a little bit more in, because I think we are hearing some clear feedback that maybe these changes don't reflect the technical changes that we see them as, or that they're written out as. So I think I'm just going to attempt to try to use some plain language to clarify. So first, from your remarks, is it your interpretation that the charter requires us to include inactive voters in the the numbers that reflect in the percentages required for the petitions?
It's a great question, and yes, the charter requires for all registered electors and who were registered at the last election, and inactive voters are still registered electors. As I read from the state statute, they are still authorized to vote, and so they are registered electors and should be counted.
Okay, so if our code didn't reflect that previously, did that then reflect a way in which our codes were in conflict with our charter?
I wouldn't say in conflict.
Okay.
I would say that the provisions added in two sections, I believe 1070, one might be 130, I can't remember exactly. That was what we would achieve to get, aspire to get in practice, was the active and inactive. And this just clarifies it for everybody. This makes it so there is no question. If someone's wondering, hey, should we count the inactives and the actives? Yes, we count those. We're counting all registered electors. So I wouldn't call it a conflict, but a clarification.
Okay, so just to put that again, this is affirming the reality we already exist in and just spelling that out for people.
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful. The other piece, just to dig into like the interaction between, I understand like our charter dictated kind of effective clock around referendum, and the interaction of kind of the appeal process and the summary. I would just love to understand sort of what were the implications of the state requirements on the summary not previously being included in the code, do you all think, on the previous referendum process?
So we did, or I should say, Mr. Robb did require his review of the petition forms before they were sent out. Again, there was significant back and forth, correction of errors, items like that. And this isn't to disparage anyone or anything like that. It's incredibly difficult to put one of these petition forms together with all of the state requirements and all of the city requirements. And yes, Mr. Robb did set a summary, and it was a rather inoffensive summary. It very much just used the what was contained within the title of the ordinance to set it. Kind of talked about the different sections of the zoning code. So it was built into the practice previously. Even though it wasn't in the code, it was in the state law.
Okay, so essentially, potentially not having that requirement in our code made it harder for people to anticipate what the summary would look like, or put some errors forth in what was brought forth in general. Because at this point, right, we're being asked to take this out of the code. That doesn't change the state law, right? So I'm just trying to understand maybe what the implications of not including this are for future petitioners.
I would say that the biggest implication of removing 252130C is it's going to, again, muddy the waters as to whether the city clerk approves the referendum petition form before it's circulated. And our goal is to make clear that Mr. Robb does approve those petition forms, and again, I just point out there is benefit to that for him approving. It's good to have a second set of eyes and someone who's skilled in this to look them over. As far as the summary goes, we are going to still require the summary. It's part of the state law, and we don't want somebody's petition to be disqualified for a technical violation.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, us not putting this in our code doesn't change the fact that this is what would happen. It would change how our code kind of reiterates state law.
We would strive to comply with state law while approving petitions, but it would lead and could lead to friction and conflict between the city clerk's office and any petition group that doesn't believe that they're required to comply with that state law, and could theoretically go out and circulate a petition without approval, which could lead us down the road to litigation, which is not what we want here. We just want to make the process as clear and transparent as possible.
Okay, that's helpful. And then kind of my final line of questions, just for clarification on this. Let's say, we don't have appeal rights right now, right? There's a world in which maybe we don't have them if people don't think that they're useful, or people might not use them. And I think a main part of that seems to be the consideration around kind of the shot clock of those kind of days that are required, right? And this, came up as a question within listening to people, so it's totally fine if this is not like an off-the-cuff answer from you. But let's say we do include this in some future worlds in the process that Councilor Lowe talked about, where we have a mean troll city clerk, and people did go to district court. Would an available remedy for those folks, for the clerk's behavior, be any kind of amelioration of the clock? If it's like so clearly, like, why would you appeal if it doesn't work out from a timing perspective when district court is not probably going to be that fast?
I don't want to speak to something that I'm not well versed in.
Okay.
And I could certainly see somebody seeking that remedy.
Okay.
But I don't know what their success would be, and it wouldn't be proper for me to speculate
Okay,
as
great.
to that.
So that's something somebody could ask for. That's maybe was my question. That's helpful.
You can ask for just about anything when you go to court.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's all really clarifying for me. I appreciate you walking through that.
Councilor LeBure.
Thanks, Mayor. My question is, I think you've already answered it, and I think everybody's kind of already asked it, but I think I just want to ask it a little different way, just for clarity's sake. On 252.130Z, I guess, you know, obviously sometimes people get confused about what's allowed in a home rule city versus not home rule city. So are you saying that this provision in state law specifically applies to home rule cities? And essentially in state law, of course, we're redoing it here in the ordinance, but is that accurate?
It could apply to home rule cities. I think the better answer is that if it takes a very minor change of your petition requirements to ensure that they are free from challenge, it's worth putting it in there. And Ms. McKinney-Brown reinforced that the charter does adopt Title 31 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. So in thinking about it, we are under a lot of those provisions. And so again, we just want to remove and reduce any ability for conflict, any ability for people to challenge a petition that the residents of the city have worked incredibly hard for.
Great. And so those dates, for example, the 5 business days, I mean, are we preempted? Like if we wanted to make that 10 business days or 4 business days, could we change those dates, or does it really need to comply to the same language, even though if we wanted to not be consistent?
Typically, you can make an ordinance more restrictive than state law. Less restrictive is difficult, and moving it out to 10 days would not, in my legal opinion, be advisable. You could be potentially eating up a third of somebody's referendum period.
Okay, great. Just thanks. I appreciate that. That adds more clarity for me.
Okay, I have no more hands up. Do we have any amendments that anyone wants to propose this evening? Oh, we need a motion on the table first. May I please have a motion?
Mayor, I move for the adoption of ordinance O-2026-21 on second and final reading.
Second.
All right, now we got our motion and a second. We have questions, which of course people can certainly raise their hand for more questions, but do we have any amendments that anyone wants to propose this evening? Councilor Kate Cruz.
So I need to say first and foremost, like, I actually agree we should have this in practice. I'm not opposed to the referendum petitioners having a way to challenge an unfair summary. My concern is just scenario as drafted, right? And I think because this is somewhat of a change for Lakewood, my opinion is let's do it right. And so I guess before I form a motion, I mean, tonight I was thinking of striking or motioning to strike C and D, but from all these conversations and creating more clarity, you know, I hate to put a third reading to this, but it's just I want to make sure we get this done right. I get the intent, I get what we're going after, but I just want to ensure that both staff, council, and community fully understand what that looks like by getting it right. So I guess I just want to open that up for conversation if there would be that appetite for a third reading on this.
Councilor Sinks, Councilor I. Cruz, and then Mayor Pro Tem Sharazai.
Thank you. Yes, we certainly do want to get it right. And I wonder, Councilor, if we went to a third reading, would there be more work that you felt that you needed to do to get it right?
We could certainly wordsmith it a little bit more, make it clearer that it applies only to the petition representatives as written. It's intended to mirror the language of 252030B. But we could explicitly call out petition representatives and a statement at the end informing that it is not a basis for anyone other than the petition representatives to challenge the summary or delay the referendum.
Right done. Councilor I. Cruz.
Thank you, and appreciate Councilor K. Cruz for the thoughtfulness around the amendment and thinking about moving this forward. I respect in kind of reading between the lines of why doing this now in like a very select season in which we're not considering an election. And I know at our next meeting we will be considering some portions around an election. However, I do think that since this matter pertains specifically to folks who have exercised their right to a referendum, and maybe any remedies they would have liked to seek or that folks in the community might want, I do think it could be appropriate, even if significant changes aren't made, since none of this is going to have any kind of immediate impact in the next couple of weeks, right? I would be in favor of going to a third reading just to make sure that we're getting it right with the appeal and with those pieces, because frankly, I think that's what folks are asking us for. I think the overview has been really helpful and hopefully giving people some clarity, and maybe we can get to landing the plane next time in a way that is getting to what we want, which is everybody having their rights exercised and clear in this section.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate the efforts from Councilor Kay Cruz and sort of providing us a path forward. I would be less friendly to a third reading. I would propose that we just remove C and D. We know C lives because of the state statute, and so if D is something that the community who's been moving these petitions around don't see as a safeguard, then I see greater work needing to be done at that policy level, and let's bring that back at that point, because the rest of it, I think there's collective agreement that it is a cleanup. I don't, to Councilor Sinks' point, like not much is going to happen from now until then. So let's spend the time at the policy level in the committee to bring it all back together. I'm concerned that if we wait, do a third reading, we have quite a bit on the next week's agenda, and there seems to be misunderstanding happening quite a bit on this topic, and if we braid in charter amendments, I think that's going to just confuse the process. So because this is sort of policy level, I'd like to see this go back to the committee. I don't disagree. I join Kay Cruz in that sentiment. This should be here, but clearly the people that it would benefit need some more time on this topic.
Councilor Black, then Councilor LeBure.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment regarding this. Whatever we do with it, I mean, I'm happy to go to a third reading, but my gut, my heart wants to leave it in for the people. Everything that I'm hearing says that there wasn't a process for appeal on the summary, and now we're providing a process for appeal on the summary. And I feel like as a city councilor, my job is to look at ways to make things more transparent, fair, and more democratic. So while I understand that there's some confusion around this issue, now that we've provided clarity here, we have a piece of the charter whereby people didn't have an avenue to appeal language, and now they have an avenue to appeal language. And that feels more fair, more equitable, and more democratic. And the other thing I'm always looking at is the charter that we're changing today. Certainly it affects the people who presented the amendments or the arguments regarding zoning, but it also affects anyone in the future who wants to submit through this process. And so when I make a judgment on this, I'm not just making a judgment for the people in the room today, I'm making a judgment on anyone who might want to use this process in the future. And to me, kind of in summary, if there wasn't a process for appeal on language, but now there is, that feels more democratic, so I would be inclined to support it.
Councilor LeBure, then Councilor Nystrom.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I was just going to add, happy to strike it and continue to talk about it and remold the language if that's what folks want to do, or a third reading, though I do recognize our Mayor Pro Tem has a good point about it mixing up with the charter conversation. Obviously, I think that wouldn't be ideal But either way, I think we should continue to take a look at that specific language there in 252130 C and D.
Counselor Nystrom.
Thank you. Counselor Black made some good points, and I don't disagree with some of the things that she said, but I do think we need to take more time on this. I think, you know, you've done a lot of work on this, and it's much appreciated. And but I also saw a lot of other comments out there that are just like additional cleanup items, or maybe things that you could run through just to verify that we've got it right. And just to clarify, so is it a requirement that we follow the state law and incorporate this into it, or is it a recommendation? Because that's what I'm kind of struggling as well.
I would call it a requirement. I believe that we need to be following state law to ensure that we're protecting petitions that are filed from challenge.
Okay, thanks.
I don't remember that. I apologize. So again, just to reiterate, I would call it a requirement, a practical requirement.
Okay. I would just say that at a minimum, I think this should be a third reading, or I think maybe we need to revisit in committee.
Counselor Ryan and Counselor Lowe.
I think we heard from the Lakewood Citizens Alliance that their main concern seems to stem from the conversations that we've been having most recently with 130 C and D. And I guess I think a third reading might make some sense, because hopefully the group can go back and say and look at it and see and just confirm from themselves. I'm ready to move forward with C. If D seems to need a little tweak, sounds like from our attorney that perhaps there might be some additional language that he might consider adding at the end of that, rather than trying to put him on the spot and coming up with the language tonight. I think it would make sense to give some time to see whether that does make sense to add some language in there to make sure that in our effort to give our citizens more protections by being able to appeal something that someone might decide is arbitrary or just completely wrong, give them that appeal process, that we're not at the same time giving somebody the opportunity to use it in a way that we didn't intend. And so to the extent that we need a little more time for our city attorney to take a look at that, to make sure that while we're trying to help our citizens, that same language can't be used to create unintended consequences, I think it's worth taking the time to do a third reading. And so if Councilor Kay Cruz would like to make the motion, I would certainly support it.
Counselor Lowe, then Counselor Furman.
Yeah, good discussion. I mean, look, I'm happy to do whatever the majority of council wants. I think, clearly there were a lot of comments on Lakewood Speaks. I certainly came into the meeting tonight very open to the idea of doing third reading, just to sort of give 2 more weeks for this all to hang out there and make sure that there's no questions. So I get why people are pushing for it. Here's my thing, though. I agree with Councilor Sherzai that at this point I'm less inclined to do a third reading. A third reading to me is in a situation where a lot of stuff gets raised and we don't feel like we have time to work through it, and we need to do some amendments, and we want more time because we don't want to have it be rushed, and we want to do more stakeholdering. I got to say, at this point, this seems remarkably cut and dry to me. I think a lot of people I get that this is a very fraught topic that people are nervous about, but I don't see how we could get more cut and dried answers from our city attorney's office. This is required under state law. As the city attorney's made the point, under our charter actually incorporates key provisions of this process of state law so that it applies. And setting that point aside, to follow a process that is in violation of state law risks throwing out or disallowing citizen referendums. So you don't want a situation where our code is in conflict with state law. And more to the point, it's not, de facto, that's not what's happening. When the whole referendum process happened last year, folks worked with the city clerk to get the title language approved. That's just how we're doing business right now. So this doesn't add any new requirements other than clarifying existing state law and adding an appeal process that is purely optional, only for the referendum petitioners, only if they want to exercise it, that moves at warp speed, at least based on, the city timeline. So I guess I would put to my colleagues, I don't know what information we're going to get over the next 2 weeks that we don't have in front of us now. If folks, I'm not being rhetorical, like if folks give me sort of an argument for why 2 more weeks will actually be more clarifying, I'm happy to listen to that. But my inclination would be no third reading. And respectfully, I just don't, I agree with Councilor Black, like, why would we not give referendum petitioners an optional appeal to exercise if they want? If they do a cost-benefit analysis, they say, well, we don't love this language, but we don't want to eat it 4 days, so we'd rather not. They're free to do that. It puts the decision in the hands of whoever's filing a referendum. So at this point, I would be a no on amendment, and I suspect a no on a third reading.
Councillor Furman, then Councillor Sinks.
I will say that my support for a third reading is, even though I don't think it's really the appropriate use of third reading, is mostly because it's the middle ground in this situation. Because I'm very troubled by the idea of striking or frankly voting no on this, mostly because it is, as people have pointed out, designed to support and strengthen the referendum process for those seeking referendums, to make it more defensible, to make them, essentially they can change the language. I guess I'm troubled by the idea of striking it until people have a moment to step back and go, this was meant to protect that process. I realize that's not really the purpose of the third reading, but my hope is that by doing a third reading, because I would hate to strike it, because I think the reality is things get busy, schedules and agendas may push, and this may not be something that's addressed in what I would consider to be a timely manner, and it does seem like a valuable tool for those seeking referendums and initiatives. And so as a result, I think I see enough value in this to not just simply strike it because of people asked for it without perhaps understanding how it was actually intended to be employed. So the third reading, again, though I know it's not the intent, in my mind gives the people in this room and other places an opportunity to come back to Lakewood Speaks and say they still don't like it. And if that is the case, then maybe it gets, I know this is probably annoying to others, maybe it gets struck then. But so I lean towards the middle road, which again, may not be the appropriate approach, but provides some opportunity for further input on this, what is intended to be a tool to support those seeking these referendums and initiatives. Thank you.
Councillor Sinks.
Thank you. More an informational question. Would it be possible to pass all of 2.52.130 except C and D? Is that something we could do tonight? Yeah.
That would be an amendment.
That would be an amendment to.
But
his,
not
no.
if we table the full thing. We would need to address both of those together.
So I might just signal that I might just be interested in putting forth an amendment that we pass 2.52.130 except for C and D and bring it back on third reading. So, no.
Let me clarify a couple of points. The first is I want to make it clear that Charter 6.1 says that we follow state law unless we have a specific amendment by code. And that's why when we handle initiatives and referendums, we have to look at what's in our code. Then we have to go back to state law. Then we have to go back to our charter. Then we have to go back to Constitution. So the point of these amendments is to try to put it all in one place so there's no hide the ball. If this is tabled to a third reading, Mr. Schenk will not be here in 2 weeks, so we'd ask that you'd move that out 4 weeks. And no changes would be made by staff. Whatever is posted for first reading comes through for second reading, would come through for third reading. The only changes, once this is posted for public view, are made by the city council in an open meeting. So you won't see anything different than what you've already got. You do have the opportunity to either amend it, which would be to strike the offending provisions and pass the rest of the document and then move on. That might, as Councilmember Sharazai said, be the best path forward at this point, because as you all know, you are about to set up a city council committee to look at the policy issues associated with 252. And maybe this is a policy issue the city council wants to spend a little bit of time thinking about. 252 and all the election codes are active codes and need to be reviewed and updated annually or biannually every 2 years. So this might be a section that city council just wants to take ownership of and then let the rest of the technical changes go through. But if you don't want to do that, then you can table it out. Again, we'd ask for the 4 weeks so that Mr. Schenk can be here. And then you can discuss it further at that point.
Councillor Cruz.
Thank you. To the questions that were posed about like what we could potentially do at a third reading, I'll just signal the things that I would be looking for were maybe some clarifying language on that it's the petitioners and the petitioners alone who have the right to appeal. I think clearly there's some confusion about how that's written, so potentially there could be some wordsmithing there. And potentially it is a broader policy concern. I'm open to that, but I just wanted to clarify, is the way the appeal is written the only way the appeal can be written based on state statute? Like, are there other options?
No, the appeal is not based on state statute. The appeal was taken from the language of 252-030B.
Right. So to me, it seems like, and maybe that's the policy question. Either we can deal with that sooner rather than later in a third reading with some feedback from the community, from folks who might have wanted to exercise that right or could in the future. Or the answer is people don't want appeal rights and we don't have to put it in there. That to me is what I would be looking for from in a third reading, but I'm open to what folks have brought up, which is that this could be a broader policy concern. So I think that there are substantive issues requiring further conversation with the community that could necessitate a third reading, but otherwise I do think we strike and come back to it in the policy committee.
I might suggest that maybe we consider passing it tonight, including C, because we've accomplished the fact of understanding that that is state code, that's state statute, so that's not new. But D, while it is addressing protections, adding an appeal process for referendum, it's clearly something that community wants to be a part of that decision. So maybe I would say we pull D, pass everything else, and then we've got a number of these that we need to work through in committee anyway. So this can be one of the first ones on the list, and that gets us to the point, as we've identified, there are a few challenges with doing a first reading, but we're still able to create a process where a committee will work on the details of the new appeal portion. So I'll say that, but let council do whatever motions you guys want to do as far as finalizing our next steps. So this is where we need a hand. Councillor Cruz.
So I motion to amend ordinance 2026-21 to strike sections 2.52.130C and D in their entirety, returning to the current code on this point, and direct staff to bring a fully vetted summary and appeal process for referendum petitions back through an upcoming ad hoc policy committee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. So at this point, raise hands if you want to talk about that motion. And if we have no hands, we'll just do vote. I have no hands. So, Councilor Sinks, did you want to talk, or were you voting?
Just to clarify, so we're we're taking out C and D is your amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. A yes vote would remove C and D. And that fails, the no's being Strom, Rhine, Black, Sinks, Cruz I, Lowe, and Nystrom. Okay, so then question becomes, Councilor Kate Cruz.
Okay. I move to amend ordinance 2026-21 to just strike sections 2.52.130D in their entirety, returning to the current code on this point, and direct staff to bring a fully vetted summary and appeal process for referendum petitions back through an upcoming ad hoc committee.
Second.
All right, please cast your vote. That passes, 9 yeses, 2 noes, noes being LeBure and Nystrom. Councilor Black, did you have your hand up? Was your hand up?
You know what, I do actually. I just want to say that I voted the way I did, and just a final comment. I would love to see a process for appeals come back to support you, the people, in your right to move the democratic process forward in a way that gives you more opportunities and options. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And so our next vote will be to vote on the the ordinance as amended. Please go ahead and cast your vote. That passes, 9 yeses, 2 noes, the noes being LeBure and Nystrom. All right, thank you, everybody. And that takes us to item 8B.
A point of information. Is the staff, are we going to handle something like D, the appeals, in policy and then in policy?
committee.
And not turn it over to staff? Okay, thank you.
Nine B. Will the clerk please read 9B into the record?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Let me see here. Second reading and public hearing on item 8B, O-2026-22, authorizing the purchase of real property located at 10160 West 12th Avenue, Lakewood, Colorado, for municipal open space and park purposes, including acceptance of a deed therefore.
All right, and for this one, we do have a presentation this evening. We do not have a presentation this evening. So may I please have, actually, we need to do public comment, but I do not have anyone signed up to speak on this issue. Did anyone want to speak to item 8B? All right, seeing none, may I please have a motion?
I move for the adoption of ordinance O-2026-2020-22 on second and final reading.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I am closing the public hearing. Hands up for anybody that has council or comments or questions. Mayor Pro Tem Charzai.
Yes, thank you. Just a comment and recognition of gratitude to staff. We have been hearing from folks in the Iber neighborhood for quite a while about this parcel of land and appreciate staff's willingness to sort of problem solve that and work with the owner to see if we could find a path forward. So it's always a day to celebrate when we're adding parks and open space in the north side. Last week we were celebrating movements for Ward 2, and this week we're celebrating Ward 1, and I'm just really ecstatic for that. So thank you.
I have no other hands up. Did you read our motion already? Okay, we have a motion on the floor in a second. Please go ahead and cast your vote. That passes 11 yeses and 0 nos. Will the clerk please read 8C into the record?
Second reading and public hearing on item 8C, O 2026-23, authorizing execution of a permanent utility easement across city property at 2911 and 2951 South Wadsworth Boulevard to Public Service Company of Colorado for an underground electrical line and related facilities.
All right, thank you very much. And we do not have a presentation on this topic tonight. I also likewise do not have anyone signed up to speak for the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak for the public hearing on this topic? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. May I please have a motion?
Mayor, I move for the adoption of ordinance O-2026-23 on second and final reading.
Second.
All right, motion on the floor in a second. Any council comments or questions? Seeing none, please go ahead and cast your vote. All right, that passes 11 yeses and 0 nos. So that brings us to the next portion of general public comment for items not on this evening's agenda. And first I have John Barnett. John Barnett's still here. Nope. Okay, we are out. All right, we have then Midian Schaffner. And we've got pooled time here, so I do need to check and make sure we've got our other 3 folks here. Ronald Fontenot. Did I say that right? Yes, ma'am. Oh, thanks. T. Thompson.
It's actually Khalik and then also Tristan Williams. So we just had the.
Okay.
And it'll probably all make sense once we start speaking.
Khalik, which one are you?
This is Tristan.
Tristan, okay.
Yes.
And then, are you Khalik?
I'm not Khalik. My name is Median. And if I can, before we jump in, Khalik had to go back to the community corrections facility because this ran longer than what we anticipated, but his presence was here. He was here, and what we're speaking to is specifically to the residents, the inhabitability of the facility. So he's not physically here. He was here, but this round
So
longer.
we can give you 9 minutes.
That's
3
great.
minutes for each one of you. Does that work?
That works great.
Okay.
That's plenty of time.
Okay.
Thank you for that accommodation.
All right, ready? All right.
All right, so as I speak into what I came to talk to you all about today, Mr. Fontenot and also Mr. Williams, they're going to have a display of photographs that are inside of the facility. It is the Intervention Community Corrections Facility. The address sits at 1651 Kendall Street in Lakewood. Pretty sure that is in Ward 2 of Lakewood. So I want to preface by saying that public contracts that you all have with the companies and organizations that sit in your city, those public contracts are more than business agreements. They actually are indicative of what you all will tolerate in the city. And so I'm going to speak into 3 questions that I have for you all tonight. The first question that I have is what are your residents experiencing? And if you can't answer that question of what the residents of this community corrections facility are experiencing, then I would challenge that there are some proximities that you do not have that you probably want to get very wise on. Inside of this facility houses individuals that are relegated to live in this facility because it is a community corrections space. Community corrections is supposed to be a space of restoration and integration back into the community to ensure that we are able to reintegrate and receive them back as our neighbors. On paper, that's what community corrections is about. On paper, our carceral system is also supposed to be restorative. But what we are constantly seeing is that that is not the reality in practice. And ICCS, which is the facility we're talking about, is a culprit of that. They are not offering realistic reintegration, and the inhabitability of this facility is very problematic. So again, that question of what are your residents experiencing, I'm going to answer a couple of things that they are experiencing. The first is environmental health concerns. This facility, there has been reports from current and former residents where they have black mold in the shower. There is insect infestation that is happening. Consistent overflowing of the toilets where there is feces and urine that is left untouched for days. And the living conditions continue to deteriorate because the building was built in 1903. And unfortunately, it wasn't preserved for history. It just simply was turned over for this kind of treatment. The second piece are human dignity concerns. When you talk about the nutrition that is afforded to the residents at this facility, the food is expired, it is old, and there is even a current civil litigation that is being pursued by a woman who was pregnant in this facility. And she was neglected to the point where her childbirth became a high-risk birth. That is what they are experiencing when they are just simply trying to get the nutrition that should be due them. The third piece is the systemic accountability concerns. We've been asking questions, and I'll introduce myself at the end because I don't center myself when I do this work. Our organization has been asking questions through our legal redress, asking the leadership, what is happening? And instead of getting logical responses of what is taking place, all we've been told strategically is that the residents are responsible for the chores inside of the facility. There is black mold in the shower. You don't just simply clean black mold from a shower. You are trained. You are provided protective gear to ensure that you are not impacted the way that these residents have reported being impacted. Hospitalizations have happened where the exact symptoms of mold exposure have been very relevant, with skin rashes, with breathing capacity issues, asthma now being inflared. The second question that I have for you all is, what was the facility's response? The facility gave us general assurances as if they were reading from their checklist of what they should be doing. They should have pest control services that they have access to. They should have and understand building codes. They told us that they understood it, but there was nothing that afforded us the affirmation that this was actually being enforced. Again, they also expressed shared responsibility, and they confirmed that it is the residents that are responsible for cleaning that facility. And they did not offer details about what protective gear and training have you offered these individuals as they're exposed to something like this. And then there were outstanding questions that remained. The operational assurances were provided through their checklist. But again, when we started to ask for specifics about those inspections, the reported mold, the responses to that, Those questions remained unanswered, despite our legal redress trying to get answers on multiple occasions. And we didn't communicate in a way that was disruptive, at least not yet. We were inviting into conversation. Let's figure this out together. What resources are you potentially being denied in the city of Lakewood that we can speak on? And again, we were dismissed. The last question that I have for you all, and this is where I challenge each of you. Would you trust what your residents are experiencing? And you can answer that because we challenge you tonight to invite the leadership of this facility to lunch and make the condition of that lunch that you and the leaders of the facility be served the same meal that they are serving the residents. And ask yourself if you would be comfortable joining in that lunch spread that they provide the residents. That is our challenge to you. And if you don't want to accept that challenge, then that means you do not accept this reality. And I implore you to take that unacceptable response and do something about it. The second piece is, again, your leadership requires proximity. This space cannot be the only space you learn about this. That is what we are now inviting you into. Because again, we're not coming here to disrupt, at least not yet. We are coming to invite you into this journey as well, because we are not going to stop asking questions or demanding change at this facility. And we invite your platform, your constituency, and your awareness into the conversation. And the final question that I have for you all. If these residents, because they are your residents, if this is how a company gets to come into your city and treat your residents, why do they get to do business in the city of Lakewood? Why do they get the privilege of being able to represent the symptoms of your leadership? Because at the end of the day, when this story is retold, your legacy will be questioned. And now that you know, what will you do? We will be sending this report to each of you electronically, which will also include the responses that came from the facility. And again, we are asking that you do what you were voted in to do and protect your constituency. Because anyone that's registered to vote and this is their address, you work for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was incredibly skilled, by the way. 9 minutes on the dot. All right, thank you, everyone. That closes general public comment this evening and brings us to general business. We have a number of items on general business. First, I will hand the floor, I'm not sure if we're going Councilor Furman or Councilor Lowe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple requests for council action here to close out the meeting. One from Councilor Furman and I. We emailed about this before, moving topics here rather abruptly. So as I'm sure it's not news to anyone on this dais, we've gotten a number of complaints from our residents over the last couple of years about the process of work happening outside of their house, on their street, on their sidewalk, even in their front yard, with zero notice about who's doing the work. This actually happened to me. My husband was not happy when it happened, and I've heard from many constituents in Ward 3 that this has happened too. And it often what's going on is a telecom operator often is then working with a contractor to dig up area in front of the property. And what makes this complicated is that those right-of-ways and those easements are protected under federal and state law. So there's very limited action the city can take here, unfortunately. And often the infrastructure that's being built is genuinely important. But residents we've all heard from them, are frustrated when this happens with no notice, when it's not clear who's doing the work, and when they don't know who to call or who to email to get questions answered. And when there's not a clear timeline about when the work will resolve, and often complaints are made about whether, sort of the conditions are restored to the way that they previously were. Councilor Furman and I have had a couple of conversations over the last few months. I had the opportunity to sit down with Mr. Goldstein. Thank you very, very much, Ben. We had a very helpful conversation where we pulled in staff from the city attorney's office, the public works director, and staff from the public works department. There's a lot of things we kind of can't do here, but I think one thing we can do is this. There is already a precedent for the city using the authorities and the permitting process and the relationships that we do have with these operators when they come into Lakewood to strongly incentivize them, to encourage them to sign an agreement committing to certain common sense best practices. A good example of this would be hanging a door hanger on people's doors 48 hours before the work starts, basically saying, here's who's doing the work, here's why it's important, here's why this is happening, here's how long it will take, here's who you contact if you have questions. So that's a precedent that's already been established. We've already done that with at least one telecom operator. And this is simply a request for council action. The wording is on Lakewood Speaks, that we've vetted carefully with both the city attorney's office and the city manager's office and Public Works to direct staff to sort of come back to us with some recommendations on how they're going to use the permitting and the other authorities the city does have to encourage that these agreements be sort of standardized and made routine. The final thing we're asking for is for the city to figure out whether there's a way that residents can sort of use a common sense lookup tool to see if there's any work scheduled to occur in their neighborhood and figure out what, so the city can get that information directly to residents. So this is something that staff feels is doable, doesn't have legal pitfalls, and we're asking for a vote to direct staff to do it, come back to us with some recommendations. At that point, staff will be in staff's court. They can figure out whether it's a study session, a general update, recommendations. We kind of left that open-ended. We've identified this as one thing we can do as a council to respond to the feedback we've been getting. I'm tired of telling constituents in Ward 3 there's nothing we can do about this. This is something we can do about it. Please vote yes. Good request for council action, vote yes. Councilor Furman, anything to add?
Sure. I will say, and there's not a large group to be saying this to, but I will say in my less than a year and a half on council, I have had at least, I would say, in the range of 40 to 50 calls about this. And numerous emails. There was a lot of it last summer in Ward 4. And while we have limited levers that we can pull to influence this, there are some that we have, and I think there's a distinctive benefit. And why I know that there is a benefit to doing some of this is because I have seen dramatic differences in how it is applied based on the subcontractor. And what I mean by that is I have had people call and say, I don't really like the work that's going on. However, I was able to talk to the subcontractor. They were able to move the box 6 inches. That was great, but I'd like more notice. And I've had other people who had zero notice. The box, was split between their flower bed and their grass. And I mean, there's been a wide array of application of the process. And so I think for me, the biggest piece of this is reliable point of contact. Because of the biggest concern a lot of the people I talked to had was they get it. The easement work needs to go on there for the sort of, the necessary aspects of utilities, even telecom. However, many of them just simply tell me they would like to have had notice and someone to reach out to in case there was the opportunity to move a box 6 inches over and not, place it in the middle of an existing flower bed or wherever it happens to be. And they accept the reality that may not always be possible, but they would love the opportunity. And a number of them, while they've seen phone numbers, it weren't reliable. They weren't able to contact people. And so some more reliable access for the community is, again, worth some effort to achieve. Thanks.
Councilor Ryan.
Well, I love that the two of you are bringing this up. I guess I would also challenge the city. Every utility company that wants to do business and use the street alleyways, anything touching the public property in Lakewood has to do so under a franchise agreement. And those franchise agreements, if they don't set forth certain standards of conduct, which I suspect they do, I haven't seen one that doesn't. If they don't, then that should also be something that I guess I would like us to be looking at, not just so much in terms of what can we do through our permitting process, but if we don't address this in our franchise agreements in which our utility companies and others are doing business using our property, then we should earmark every one of the franchise agreements as they come up, that we should add language to that. This is an incredible frustration, I know, across the city. I would say our last go-around was better than our previous go-around, but it does seem like when spring comes along, not only do we see plants and flowers bloom, we also see colored flags popping up into the yards unannounced, and questions come to us inevitably, what the blankety blank is going on, and it just, we need to be doing better. So I would like us to be looking at all different avenues, including the ones that were just mentioned. I would very much hope that we were looking at our franchise agreements.
Councilor Nystrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you guys bringing this forward. I think it's well worthwhile. And yes, we've experienced a lot of this in Ward 5 as well. In fact, the mayor didn't get notice when work was done on her property. So, you know, I just want to say that the Director of Public Works has been very helpful. She did provide good information, especially this year, for contacts that people can call and who to work through with this. But if we can try to get in front of it a little bit, that will be a better option than people trying to scramble, because as we all know, some people just don't even think to go to a city website and look up a phone number or even reach out to a counselor. So I do appreciate you bringing this forward, and I think it's a really good idea.
I have one question. As Councilor Nystrom brought up, I am passionately enthusiastic about this topic as I acquired a utility box unexpectedly in my front yard. In order for council to make as much of an informed vote as possible, though, I would like to know that if we are saying yes to this, what might that impact be on other staff work that we've already prioritized?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think with all requests for council action, it does impact staff capacity. This is a shared interest of staff, and you know, we also get a lot of phone calls on this topic. Specifically, I don't know that there's a project that is going to be put on the back burner. It's probably other things are just going to have to slide back a little bit if this becomes the #1 priority. So that's helpful information for us to know, is like, is the goal to have this done in 2 months or 2 weeks, or, you know, that really impacts the impact on staff's workflow when they can build it in so it fits a little more naturally. I understand this is a real concern for the community, and I think staff gets that. There's a little wiggle room on when we slate it. It's probably less impact on work plan.
Okay, so we may not notice other things that slow? Is that what I just heard?
I think city council won't notice. I think staff does a really good job of just figuring it out, but staff will notice a new workload like this.
Okay. I think, you know, everybody can understand. We just want to make sure that if we're going to deprioritize something with this vote, that we're clear on what that might actually be. I do have a couple other hands up, Councilor Sinks and then Councilor Lowe.
Thank you. I wonder if you could tell me what would be involved in staff's work in doing this. What would they have to do? Just put something on the website, and what else? I don't know.
Well, the request for council action doesn't spell out specifically what the work will entail. It more directs staff to look at it. I know from being involved in previous conversations with Councilmember Lowe that the intention is to have the website where people could look up work going on, that might be a significant lift. I don't know that we have that in place right now. It's a cross-departmental effort with the legal department, as Councilmember Lowe alluded to. That would be a heavy lift for our IT and GIS team, and then, of course, Public Works. Working on the notification or door hanger process, we'd have to work within the constraints of both federal and state law, which both have impacts on telecommunication providers and our ability to regulate them. But that's something staff's already kind of working on. It's more that website where every single possible contractor doing right-of-way work in the city, because it changes so quickly, that could be a really heavy lift. Of course, we can come back to you and give you a more detailed breakdown of what all would be involved based on what's in the RFCA.
Councilor Lowe.
Yeah, no, thank you, and thank you for the thoughtful questions. I mean, just to briefly, I do want to call people's attention to the wording, right? The actual wording of the request for council action says, additionally, council requests staff evaluate a public-facing address lookup tool with map or GIS integration where residents can search upcoming work on their street. So the idea is to evaluate it and then come back to us with a recommendation so that we have a better sense of like what's involved, the timeline here. The request for council action, just to speak to the sort of the point Mr. Goldstein just raised, quote, is not asking staff to take any action that conflicts with state or federal law. Mr. Goldstein, we had a meeting where we reviewed the exact wording of this request for council action. I think it was we had a meeting with Ms. DeAndrea at Public Works, Keith Hensel, and Mr. Shank in the city attorney's office, and you. I think that was May, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound right? Okay. And then we worked on this request for council action, and you and the city attorney's office and Public Works reviewed the precise wording, and we all kind of agreed that the wording looked, obviously, we didn't agree that 6 members of council wanted to vote to move it forward, but the sense was that this was a workable, that passing this request for council action was totally doable on a staff level in terms of it wasn't imposing an undue burden. That was my understanding of everyone's consensus from reviewing the language in May and June, right?
That's accurate.
Okay, great. So we've tried to scope this in a way that is as sensitive as possible. And finally, we didn't add a deadline, right? So to be honest, I'd kind of like to add a deadline, but in part because I knew that we were going to, I know 2.5 years into this, I know how this goes. Didn't add a deadline because I didn't want someone to be able to say, well, this might have to deprioritize other stuff. Staff has a fair amount of flexibility in how fast they do this. I will just say for the record, I would like it to come back to us like in my first term, and maybe even like faster than that. But we didn't add a deadline. So there's flexibility to kind of prioritize this.
Okay, so so what we're being clear on, I'm going to state it here to make sure for the record staff understands exactly what we're doing, which it sounds like we've had a decent amount of pre-work already, so we know this. Coordinating a strategy using all viable levers available to the city to strongly encourage and incentivize city workers, contractors, and provide external providers to a couple of different items. Then separately, requesting staff evaluate a public-facing address lookup tool for residents to look at upcoming work on their street. Would you say that I just summarized the scope of work fairly accurately?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And the full request is there under provide background information that supports the request on Lakewood Speaks.
Okay. So with that, does council feel pretty comfortable understanding what you're getting ready to vote on? Do you have any other questions? I have no other hands up. Councilor Sinks?
Yes, I appreciate this. However, I know that everything's been done in my neighborhood already. I wonder do we have a status like all of Ward 1 has been done or Ward half done, wards, how much yet has to be done on this Google Fiber project? Does anybody know?
I don't know the status off the top of my head. They are making substantial progress. I will note that is one of many telecommunication providers that does work in the city. That's one of the challenges here. If it was only one company, then we could probably figure this out more easily. It's lots of companies with lots of different subcontractors, which makes coordination really difficult.
And that's the only question that I have up, so please go ahead and cast your vote. That passes 11 yeses and 0 noes. Before we move on from that, is staff clear? Like, is there anything else you need from us up here? Okay. All right, we're good. Thank you for that. Second request this evening, Councilor Nystrom, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm not going to read through this. I've talked to most of you about this, and it's something that we've been focusing on in the Sustainability Advisory Committee meetings. It's part of the work plan for the Sustainability Advisory Committee. This is basically just requesting a study session so that we can get all the right people in the room to have a conversation and get up to speed on where things stand in terms of rental bikes and scooters and kind of next steps there. I know there needs to be some community outreach and things like that before we would move forward on anything related to that, but I know there was also legal questions about insurance and some other matters. So the other part of this is to kind of vet the prospect of an electric van shuttle. I think most of you have heard from Chantel about the work that she's done to put together a proposed pilot. We've had support from Director DeAndrea and Mr. Whitaker, who was in the last meeting. We also had a representative from, or Michael Hughes, who is the West Corridor Transportation Management Association lead. And he's very knowledgeable about this process, as well as has already volunteered to kind of look around for some grant money that might be helpful to us. And then I'd also like to be in a position so that next year, when the RTD partnership grant opens up, that we're well positioned to do that and prepared to write that grant. So that's in essence what I would like to try to accomplish in the study session. And again, this is something that I think is really vital and important in our community. We need alternative transportation. Everybody knows our roads are getting more and more congested, and that's going to continue to happen. And that also increases greenhouse gas emissions. It affects safety of pedestrians and cyclists. So these are all, I think, important aspects of looking into this and determining best next steps that we can move forward on.
Councilor LeBure.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. I just want to add a little bit of context to the first part. I don't know as much about the second part of this request, specifically the van shuttle service. I mean, I'm not as steeped in the details as Councilor Nystrom, but I did want to add a little bit of color to the scooter conversation and just clarify. Before 2019, we passed an ordinance. There used to be scooters in Lakewood. Just want to throw that out there. They were mostly exclusively in Ward 2. However, Lakewood wanted to make it actually legal and not just have a lack of laws surrounding it. So in 2019, we passed an ordinance legalizing scooters in Lakewood. So they're currently legal. However, the requirements were so onerous and so difficult, and most importantly, there were literally one sentence, an insurance requirement, that all the companies up and left Lakewood altogether and said, we're not gonna have scooters in Lakewood. And I know Councilor Lowe knows a lot about this subject matter as well. I know we've spoke with a number of companies and micromobility companies. I just want to add a little color that there's a lot of good language already in code in Lakewood related to this. I think the question that Councilor Nystrom is asking is it would be nice to have everybody on council have the same level of understanding of what that ordinance says, what it does, and how it might be reworked to actually, move this stuff forward. And I would also just encourage folks to take a look at the ordinance. There's a lot of good stuff in there, including, allowing the city manager to geofence things and limit the scope and test it out as a pilot and all sorts of other things. So, assuming a study session would be had, I think that would be good information for everybody on council to have related to it.
Councilor Furman, then Councilor Black.
My support for this study session is a little bit more focused on the microtransit piece, mostly because as we see RTD doing reductions in service, there is going to be a hole to be filled. And even beyond that, there's the positive side of it, which is dealing with transit and finding ways for aspects of our city, whether it's things that are to the benefit, specifically in our city, having Red Rocks, RIMCAT, different places potentially connected via last mile connections that we don't currently have, circulators that can serve both transit issues and business. I think there's a overall win to the exploration of microtransit, and I also think we need to evaluate the hole that's going to be built by RTD reducing service as well. So,
Councilor Black.
Yeah, I just wanted to say quickly, I'm appreciative of Councilor Nystrom bringing this up, and I do think micromobility is also a discussion about keeping communities grounded and centered and keeping economies local, which I think is an important piece of the puzzle. And I also just wanted to touch on something you said that I found really important. You mentioned that this was part of the work plan of the Sustainability Committee, that it came out of the Sustainability Committee, and that there's a resident who's also helping lead a pilot. So I think that's so wonderful. I love hearing the ways in which community has come together under this committee. They're really passionate about this issue. It's something that they and you have clearly discussed. And so I would want to honor their work as well and the volunteer commitment that they've given in terms of what they as residents would want to see. So I really liked that you included that piece of it as well.
Councilor Lowe.
Good request for council action. Plan to vote yes. Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a couple things to clarify on this. So to the first point seems pretty easy. That would be a staff-led conversation that says, here's the ordinance, here's what we might do if you guys want to change things. Does that sound like does that track with what you're thinking? Okay. The second one, having been through this process a few times, and then we show up at the study session night and we're trying to figure out who's doing what, I want to make sure that we know way in advance. So are you talking about inviting Ms. De La Cruz in to share her ideas, or are we wanting to actually understand who would be partners and what the budget cost is of this? What are you thinking as far as number 2?
Okay, a couple things. So, yeah, I'm happy to have Chantel reshare what she's already mapped out. I can share that with council too. We also have another, a makeup done of some proposed ideas from last week that we're working on. So I can provide that to staff in advance. I think a lot of this discussion is going to kind of center around also potential funding options for this, but I do want to get staff's input on, vetting this and any concerns that they might have, as well as, what are next steps for us in terms of, like I said, identifying some more funding opportunities, as well as being in position to apply for the RTD partnership grant next year.
So do we know exactly what we would need to do to position ourselves for that?
Yes.
And is that what we're trying to accomplish in this meeting?
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah.
Okay. And so do we have a checklist, or the staff knows what we need to, I just want to make sure
Yeah, I
that we
can-
know who's going to be speaking and what's coming forward to all of us, especially as we vote on this.
Yeah, I can definitely get that done. And I'll, again, I'll talk to Director DeAndrea and Mr. Whitaker also to ensure that they're on the same page.
Do we have any questions from staff on how this might play out?
Excuse me, it sounds like we just need to coordinate internally before, and with Counselor Nystrom before we put the study session together so that it is really informative and that everyone knows what the other person is expected to do.
Would it make sense to include a conversation on Lakewood rides and just what is around what we have now? I don't know if that's too much of a lift in one night, but it seems like that might be an important part of the conversation with what we're doing today.
If I could just add something, we've kind of discussed that, but that's really a different transportation mode. Like, this is really what they call a circulator van that we're talking about, and it's been adopted by Longmont and Lone Tree and actually all of Douglas County at this point. So Lakewood Rides is kind of unique in that aspect there, but it's a 24 hours in advance that you have to call and schedule an appointment. This is like going on to Lyft or Uber. You look at the app, you see where the circulator stops, and you go to that stop, and you can also request a ride from wherever you are. So it's that type of thing. It's much more, just on demand type.
I can appreciate the
transportation.
difference. I'm actually thinking more about dollars. Like if are we talking about this replacing?
No.
Okay.
That's, no.
Okay. So if staff feels like this can be easily decoupled or not part of Lakewood Rides conversation, then that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're talking about all the things that we need to talk about in the room at that time.
Yes, that's accurate. We really should decouple them.
Okay.
And at some point, we'll have to talk about Liquid Rides and its future, but we'll do that separately.
Okay. All right. So do we have a second for your motion?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. So with that, any other council questions, or everybody ready to vote? I see no council questions. Please go ahead and cast your vote. That passes 11 yeses and 0 nos. All right, and the next item, our final item on general business this evening is we have a number of meetings that special meetings that need to get scheduled over the next couple of weeks. In the past, we have a couple different channels, if you will, on how we schedule special meetings. A number of us sign sheets and we do it that way, or B, we have an open discussion in general business and we get them scheduled that way. So because we have a number of them, and I think, at least 2 of them are related to city council or city manager related process. Thought we would go ahead and just bang through all of these tonight. Ms. McKinney Brown, do I have special verbiage that I need to use on these?
At this point, we would ask that you just generally authorize for the general concepts, and I'll work through the language to match up with that.
Okay, perfect. So first, I would like to generally authorize or get authorization from the city council to have an executive session to discuss legal matters coming out of the B&O tax decision in the courts last year. The proposed date for said executive session that I have in front of me right now is August 3rd. Do we have any challenges of doing an executive session on August 3rd to either start at 5:30 or 6 p.m.? That'll be the next stage of our conversation. First of all, is there anyone that cannot do August 3rd? Councilor Ryan.
Just a point of clarification. Would that meeting be virtual?
Is it
Given
before a
it's a
study
study
session?
session?
It would be.
Okay,
Thank
just
you.
clear. Thank you.
Yes. So I see no hands up, no one that is saying that you won't be here? Okay. So, can we pick a different date? Does it need to be August 3rd? Yeah, I thought this was from you.
Yes. City Attorney's Office. Yes. Yes, because there's a nexus that's complicated. There's a nexus to some different funding options. I mean, we can look at another date, but August 3rd is what we were planning on.
So this will be an executive session for the city attorney's office to provide legal advice. It's easier for us to do that when you're all together than have to do it person by person. I can certainly have a one-on-one meeting with Councilmember LeBure when he returns, and that will bring him up to speed. He'll know everything that we've spoken about, but we would prefer generally that you all heard the same thing at the same time.
And Councilor LeBure, I'd be happy to join that if workable, because it probably relates to some various options that we're looking at on HPC as well. So I think it'll be good to read you in fully on that.
I'm okay any way you guys want to go. I don't want to hold you up.
Okay, but I want to make sure we get you fully and connected on how this relates to HPC stuff. So let's do that.
Okay, so August 3rd, we're sounding like we're a go. Next element of that question is, I know Monday nights can be hard for everybody to get here or home early because this evening is a virtual one. Are we good starting at 5:30, or does anyone need a 6 o'clock start? All right, it looks like we're good at starting on 5:30. Do we need a formal vote?
Jay, do you need a formal vote?
Well, are you going to list other special meetings? I mean, are they okay to vote one time, or I guess either way. I just didn't know if you were finished with the discussion. If you want to just take August 3rd, go ahead and vote, or list.
Okay, let's do that.
Others on the
Everybody
list.
go ahead and vote August 3rd, 5:30 p.m., yes or no. All right, that passes. Everybody's happy with that. Next one would be Friday, August 7th, full-day meeting for city council or city manager candidate interviews. In person, I don't have a time listed here, but I think it was in person to start at 8:30 a.m. Breakfast to be there, starting at 8, meeting starts at 8:30. Okay. Please go ahead and cast your vote on that. Passes 11 yeses. And finally, August 10th, special meeting that is requested, executive session. This will be an executive session following the city manager candidate interview day. Executive session that will then start the process for negotiations for the new potential city manager. So that one is slated for virtual on August 10th at 5:30 p.m. So with that, go ahead and please cast your votes on that. I have it virtual. Is it virtual or in person? Okay, so that's incorrect. It will be in person on August 10th at 5:30 p.m. I got distracted. We already voted on that, correct? Yep, okay. All right, it passes 11 yeses. That is all I've got. Will lead us now into, do we have a final report?
I do, this evening. If you'll allow me, I just have a couple of thoughts. So for me, this is a moment This is a big moment for me that I've thought about probably my whole career. This is a moment that concludes my whole career. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey of incredible experiences. And if you'll allow me just to tell you a little bit about how this started, I realized how important city government was to the community early on as a water safety instructor at Morris Park Pool. That was one of Lakewood's first pools. So I would be at the pool ready to do, I was a lifeguard and I taught little kids how to swim. And we'd open the pool and there would be young, nervous moms watching their little scared kids at the side of the pool. And it was my job, with a calm and gentle hand, to teach basic water skills. Not to make them Michael Phelps, even though they thought they would be. That wasn't the point. The point really was to teach good water safety skills in the event of, to prevent any drownings or any other kind of emergencies. And it was really through this, it was the joy of watching the kids succeed that convinced me to a career with the city. It's so fun to see little kids with, well, it's not that fun seeing really scared little kids who are just trembling, but after a couple of days and teaching them how to float and blow bubbles, all of a sudden they're playing and they're laughing, and that's such a wonderful experience. So throughout the years together, we've acquired numerous parks, acres and acres of open space. We've built rec centers, plural, rec centers. We've built golf courses, we've built a visitor center, and a whole lot more. And most recently, we've acquired a couple of buildings to serve the members of our community that are most in need, and that's what fills your soul. I'm deeply proud of every department in the city, every single one. These folks are the most professional group of individuals I have ever come in contact with in my long career. This includes Public Works, the Police Department, Community Resources, Finance, the Municipal Courts, Information Technology, Human Resources, Sustainability and Community Development, the City Clerk's Office, and the City Attorney's Office. It's really been my privilege to serve this city next to each one of them. So I have deep respect for those dedicated employees. I will tell you they're the best in the region. We get complaints that we take a long time to hire people, but that's all on purpose. We're very discerning, and we take our time to make sure we're hiring the best employees that are going to help continue a culture of excellence and good spirits one to the other. It's so important that we treat each other with respect. I have deep respect, again, for the employees, for the community, and our community partners. I've actually made lifelong friends with some of the community members just from this interaction with the community. And of course, deep respect for the elected officials. Deep respect. You all take a lot of arrows, and you handle that with such grace and professionalism. I will always cherish all these relationships. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your support, and thank you for your trust. My gratitude is as big as the sky. So Mayor Strom, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Manager Hodson. With that, we'll go ahead and move to council reports, and we'll start tonight with Ward 5.
Okay, we have a tentative date of August 29th for our next ward meeting. I don't have more specifics yet. It's not confirmed. But beyond that, I really don't have a lot.
And neither do I. So I'll just say we look forward to seeing you at the next board meeting, and thanks to everybody who came out last week.
So Ward 4, we have our next meeting August 11th from 6 to 7:30. That's at the Lutheran Church on the Mountain, 14099 West Jewel Avenue. And I guess I would also just encourage people to, if you haven't been following the city manager selection process, to go to Lakewood Together and click on the finalists. You'll see that August 6th, there's a public meeting. And I would encourage you to attend. It's from 6 to 7:30. And then also just be mindful, there's a quick turnaround if you want to provide comment on the candidates that you meet during that session. You have a 10 o'clock that day to submit your comments. So there is a bit of a quick turnaround, but there is an opportunity to meet the finalists, and we very much would encourage you to attend if you can, and we really would love your feedback as we move forward on this very important process.
I don't have much to add. I will say we are sort of moving between possible topics for August 11th, and as soon as we nail down the one that is most appropriate, we will get it out there. It's unfortunately trying to be very apt for the moment for what the topic is causes us to change speakers, but we will nail it down very soon. Thank you.
Ward 3.
Thank you. Yes, we, thank you, Councilor Ryan. Agreed. People should go to the landing page where there's a bunch of information about the city manager finalists. The URL is lakewoodco.gov/city manager. That's where folks can find it, and you can see the finalist biographies there. They say that the video interviews are going to be posted by on this page tomorrow, as well as the survey that Councilor Ryan mentioned. So do check that page out tomorrow. For those of you listening along at the end of the meeting. The deadline for public comment, as Councilor Ryan I think mentioned, is 10 p.m. August 6th, which is also when the public receptions are. So all the information on that page. And on that theme, we're doing a joint Ward 3, Ward 2 meeting. Ward 2 just came from a joint meeting, I think, with another ward, but we're yes, I know. But we're excited to do a joint meeting with Ward 2 next week on Wednesday, August 5th, 5:15 p.m. at Lakewood Social House on 369 South Teller Street. Did I get that right? 369 South Teller Street. Lakewood Social House, August 5th. And we're going to focus on the city manager selection process. So we'll be providing a little bit more information about the city manager process, and we would love to hear people's feedback at that meeting on the city manager process, and we'll also be reminding folks about the public reception the next day and the chance to fill out the survey. So please come and engage in that process and learn more, and if you have opinions, you should absolutely share it with us at that meeting, given the fast turnaround. Over to you, Councilor Cruz.
Awesome. Nothing crazy, just, as always, make sure you shop local this summer. A lot of small businesses are really trying to navigate this summer. I will tell you it's been a lot harder for small businesses specifically this summer. So just make sure you're out there, supporting your local coffee shops, libraries, things of that nature. And then, I just want to take the moment as well to just thank Kathy for, the amazing service that you have exemplified over your tenure here with the City of Lakewood. You have been amazing to me. And I appreciate everything you've done, and I truly hope retirement is the best yet. So thank you.
Ward 2.
Thank you. A couple of things to celebrate from Ward 2. We were really pleased with our partnership with Ward 1 at the recent ward meeting we had at the Navigation Center. It was a lot of people's first ward meeting, and I think it was really beautiful to see different parts of the community come together and talk about matters of shared interest regarding homelessness and the Navigation Center. And so was really grateful to Chris Connor and team for helping us move that forward, and I hope that we will do something like that again. Chris asked attendees if they felt comfortable in the space, if they wanted to do something like that again, and the answer was overwhelmingly yes. So that was really powerful to see. And the folks at the VOA who operate many of these centers said they had never seen something like this before. So I think that speaks to our testament to including residents from all over our ward. And so I was really grateful for the partnership with Ward 1 there, and am excited for our joint ward meeting with Ward 3 coming up next week. I also just wanted to celebrate the Lamar Street Block Party that just happened last weekend. So in partnership, the 40 West Arts District, in partnership with a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, through a block party that kind of shut down Lamar Street from the light rail station and was a real celebration of art and community. And I saw so many people whose faces I knew, but also so many people who just lived nearby and heard what was going on and were really excited to join. And I think it was a beautiful celebration of community and something that I hope continues to flourish as the district continues to grow. So was grateful for the work on that. And then I would also be remiss if I didn't take just a moment of personal privilege to celebrate Ms. Hodson on your last meeting. I sit here thinking about all of the children you helped learn how to swim, and think about how all of us have been some children learning how to swim in this position, and how your commitment to, fierce negotiation and nurturing just really embody your style of leadership. And I think Lakewood has been lucky to have somebody who has been a trailblazer in the field of municipal government for women and for so many people like you. And so it's the end of an era, and we're so grateful that you're leaving us in great hands to move forward. So thank you for your service and for all of the personal sacrifice and family sacrifice that came along with that over the years. So thank you.
Yeah, I think my co-counselor went over so many wonderful things. So I just wanted to share, it looks like the Mayor's Inspiration Award is still open. And as someone who's submitted for this award before for members of our community, I just think it's such an incredible opportunity to recognize, just organizations and individuals, youth under 18 that have done really awesome work in the city of Lakewood. And it looks like the deadline's been extended through August 15th. And then Kathy, I also wanted to thank you for your service as well. I know we didn't get a huge opportunity to work together, but it's just so clear to me how passionate about this role in the city you are. And may I just say two things? What's come through to me is your passion for your fellow humans and for community. I just feel like that's always been at the forefront of all the work that I've seen you do, and it's so clear to me. And I just want to also say that to be a woman in a male-dominated field is a really powerful and big thing. Representation is everything, so thank you for leading the way for other women that would want to go into this kind of field but don't see themselves. I think it's a really, really powerful thing. So thank you so much.
Word 1.
Thank you. Our ward meeting is this Saturday. It's already August 1st. So this Saturday, same place, Holy Shepherd Lutheran Church on 9th and Kipling, and it's at 9:30 to 11. We've had on the schedule for a couple of months to hear from the municipal courts, someone from the municipal courts, and so I'm really excited to hear and let everyone know the great work that our municipal court is doing. And of course, there'll also be time for feedback and questions. We'll also have, I'm sure, questions about the city manager process as well. And as well, August 1st is Colorado Day, and so there'll be a big celebration at Heritage Lakewood Belmar Park at 4 o'clock. So same day, we'll keep you busy morning and into the evening. We'll let you have lunch there too. And not so articulate, but just great gratitude for being on the council under your leadership, which is funny to say because she always says, no, we council are the leaders, but wow, you exemplify how a manager defers to the council. And when I first got on council, I was like, what? She's been here, and maybe you were there like 16 years ago when I just first started. And it's like, what? I'm her boss now? She's been here 16 years and I've been here 2 months. But you've done such a wonderful job in this position. So thank you for your work.
No report from me, but I will miss you, and I'm looking forward to cheering you on in this next adventure. So thank you for all that you've done for the city of Lakewood.
All right. And I love going at the end because we bring up Colorado Day and National Night Out and city manager candidates. I don't have to bring any of it up. But I am going to say National Night Out. So if you are not actively involved in any kind of organized anything on National Night Out, it doesn't matter. You can still throw down in your driveway and invite some neighbors over. So I would offer to anybody, please, this is, we talk a lot about community over here, but it starts in driveways. And so just have fun. August 4th, Tuesday night, find some neighbors, have a barbecue, your driveway or theirs, wherever, but just get to know some community members. This is where, not only do we learn more about each other and we maybe identify where we might be able to help out each other because our neighbors next door need help sometimes, but these are avenues, they're pathways to create an opportunity for us to also keep each other safer. By having the cell phones of my neighbors, I can text them when I have something that might have been questionable happen in my front door, in my front yard, and I know cameras were on it outside of mine. So there are so many benefits to sitting down and having conversations and really coming together with our neighbors. So please, if you haven't thought about it, think about it. August 4th, coming up on Tuesday. And if you are already going, great. Colorado Mills, one of our largest neighbors, is hosting a big event. If you don't have anything around, that is very important to them to also create community in our area. So that is an option as well. So I will say that. And then quickly, as it is abundantly clear this evening, our city manager is moving on to greener pastures in a few days. Councilors received last week an email that mentioned here's how duties will be handled as we're waiting for a new city manager. Even if this process goes as quick as humanly possible, the likelihood is that it could be at least 2 months, maybe even more, before we actually have a new city manager in place. And so very important to understand who's doing what while we are missing this very key figure of our organization. With part of that process, we are also going to be making some temporary changes to the council process as well. So just keep an eye out on your email over the next couple of days, and I'll be calling everybody to talk a little bit more through that as well. But wanted to let you know that it is not a small thing to redistribute tasks from the highest high of the organization. So we're trying to do a lot of coordination to make sure that we keep the ship going, that we're in the right direction, and that we have a wonderful place for a new person to land. So keep an eye out for that. And with that, I will just say thank you very much for being such a wonderful thought partner. It is an incredibly intimidating situation to come in as a brand new, I was barely a counselor for 2 years, and then I'm a mayor, and all of a sudden I have to run these meetings and make some very significant decisions about things. And oh wait, and then 2.5 months in, you have packed chambers and an atrium and unwanted callers from a different state. So mind you weren't able to help me like in that exact acute moment, but all that to being said, being a brand new mayor, even being a city councilor, is not a small feat. And I want to thank you, Kathy, for everything that you have done to help us get our feet under us as we all ran for different reasons, but we're very passionate about what they all were. you helped us become most effective at the job that we have in front of us. And that and your leadership with staff as well, all of you guys have just been incredible. And I know that it's a big part because it comes from the top too. So thank you for creating the culture that you did. And thank you for being such an important thought partner with me through the time that we had together. So with that, there being no further business this evening, I will go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting at 10:18 p.m.